Yeah, it was.
I think it works better anyway.
Yeah, I do too.
I didn't see her.
She went to her car.
Oh, okay.
Can we have wine and water meetings?
Don't I wish?
I'd be a snoozing if we were doing that.
Yeah, sorry.
I've got my coffee.
I would get silly so fast.
Oh, then for
You
sure.
want to leave that bottle? You might want to move that bottle.
This one, yes.
I make a motion.
You know what's funny is I actually am thinking about making that change to a laptop.
Okay. I don't really have to bring that.
I used to at the last
Training me.
studio I was at.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to roll, James.
Video's on.
Okay. We are beginning the meeting of the City of Ojai Arts Commission on Thursday, March 21st. And we will start with the roll call, if you would, please. Mr. Vega?
Okay. Commissioner Addison,
Here.
Commissioner Harmon,
Here.
Commissioner Golden,
Here.
Commissioner Toscher,
Here.
Commissioner Zaringer,
Here.
and Commissioner Wynn.
Hola.
Okay, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. And Christine, would you lead
Or
us,
a
please?
cookie in my mouth.
That'll just sweeten it.
You do it.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we move on now to public comment, and we do in fact have one person who is eager to address the commission.
Very eager. Good evening, everybody. Leonard Clay, 412 North Fulton Street. Very lovely reception, by the way. That wasn't why I came for that, but I also came to speak. I am here today as president of the board at the Art Center. I wanted to tell you about some of the upcoming events we have. Coming to the theater, opening April, I believe it's the 6th, Friday, is The Miser. Moliere's The Miser. It's a wonderful, wonderful production. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and Michael Addison's Macbeth from last year are in the play. Cecil Sutton, who's been in many plays, is there. Myself, Bill Spellman, and a couple of new people who are quite delightful. So I think it'll be really good. It plays 4 weekends, Friday nights, Saturday nights at 7:30, and Sundays at 2. Then the summer musical is Mamma Mia, and that'll be a tremendous amount of fun. In addition to the theater, the literary branch has a function this Monday, the 25th at 7 o'clock. Patty Hirsch, who is an NPR journalist, will be reading from his new book. That's at 7 o'clock. A week from Sunday, which is on March 31st, this chamber music concert, and I'm going to butcher the names. Natasha Kislenko is a pianist, and Shavdar Parashkedov is the violinist. They've been a duo that have toured the world. And if you have not, as I have said before, if you have not been to a chamber music concert at the Art Center, you really should go. It's in the gallery. The acoustics are very nice, and it really is something special to be that close to such incredibly talented musicians. In terms of the art, right now we're still in the gallery is the Fusion exhibit from Diane Burke and Mike Stiller, really interesting pieces. Then in April, going up the night before we open the Miser, is our annual Great Art Theft. And this is the exhibit will be up for a month. On Cinco de Mayo is the deadline, will be when the Great Art Theft itself takes place. And we sell tickets for $80, and everybody who buys a ticket has their name placed in the drum and each of the pieces of art. And we only sell as many tickets as there are pieces of art. First person whose name comes out of the drum gets to pick among the 80 pieces or so that'll be on display. Second person gets to pick whatever they want except for what the first person picked, and so on. And it's really nice. It's a fun event. This year's Cinco de Mayo, so we will be having margaritas, complimentary, to get everybody in the mood, and it really is fun. So check that out. Then it's a little early to be reminding people, but the last weekend in May is, the 43rd Art in the Park, 2-day event in Libby Park, and artists come from all over California and the Southwest, and it's a lovely way to spend some time in the park. We will have music in the gazebo this year. Tommy Marsh will be organizing it all, and again, that's just a lovely place to go meander. When I speak here and tell you what's happening in the Art Center, one of the things I don't mention are the numerous classes that we have at the Art Center. So I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 of them. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have life drawing classes in the morning. Anyone is welcome to attend. There's live model. Whatever your skill level, you're welcome. So please come down. On the first and third Monday evenings of the month, Stephen Bauer teaches tango. This has been going on for 15 years. No experience necessary. He's a marvelous teacher. And then on Wednesday night, Paul Salzman, who is directing the Miser, that's his sideline. His real job is as a dance instructor, and he teaches ballroom dancing. And again, no experience necessary. And I stick my head in, and it looks like everybody's having a great time at both of those events. So come on down to the Art Center, pick up a newsletter, which are in the lobby, and you can check out all the events we have there. And this is our 80th year, and we exist because of the support from the community. So thank you all.
Thank you, Lenny. Thank you. It's great to get these updates on what's going on at the Art Center. All right, we have some minutes to approve, unless there's anybody else in the audience who would like to speak. I gather not. I'd appreciate a motion, unless there are any emendations to the minutes for January 17th. Anything on offer? If not, would somebody move to approve those minutes, please?
I move we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and similarly for the minutes for February 21st. Are there any suggested
Move to-
emendations? Okay, a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Opposed? Unanimous. Amazing. Okay, we'll move on. We have a number of discussion and action items. The first is the budget request. You've all been, okay, here it is. That was not distributed in advance. Okay, this is the outline of what the Budget Committee has put together. It's in some significant ways different from the previous year. So I'll talk through it from the top. Art grants, you'll see, is increased by 2,500 because of the large number of applicants that we get. This will give us just a little more flexibility with that program. We're suggesting $4,000 for art acquisitions, which is pretty much our standard figure for that activity for the city collection. The mentor program, again, is, as usual, $5,000, and that covers 4 of the student-artist pairs, and the 5th one is funded by the Ojai Education Foundation, and they have said they will again contribute to the program this summer. So that means we can have 5 pairs of artists and students. The City Museum program, we've dropped that down to $3,000, and that will mainly be for gallery shows and anything else that we devise in the course of the coming year vis-a-vis our interaction with the museum. The reason we've dropped it down is that we've completed the purchase of the racks, which allowed for or called for a larger budget allocation last year. Art awards, again, is a slight increase from $750 to $2,000, and that's on the basis of 2 possibilities. One is we have discussed, but we have not taken action on the idea that perhaps the Hope Fraser Award could be offered every year instead of every couple of years. So that would call for an additional cost. And there's also been some discussion, and that will go forward, I'm sure, about a new program, the Emerging Artist Program. And the discussion has been in the preliminary meeting of the still yet to be officially created ad hoc committee for program development. But it seemed appropriate to put some money in there because I suspect we're going to go forward with that program. Art education, and this is for the initial funding for our next book, and we'll be talking about that later this evening. Public art is the continuing expenditure for labels and things of that order. So once again, $1,000. And then the copier rental and supplies we've increased to from 600 to 1,000. Again, because as our programs expand, there will be more incidental expenses. So the budget that we are recommending, that we request, is $51,000 of the City Council, which is $1,350 more than last year, and we're hoping that our exemplary performance throughout the year and the special programs that we provide to the community will encourage the City Council to meet our requests. We shall see. So, discussion. Linda.
As the city museum program head there, I think that's probably more than I'll need unless something comes up. I don't know whether you want to leave it in there or if you want some flexibility with the budget. I could see using it for things like updating programs or something with that at the museum if we need it, but I think they just did that. Didn't Wendy say she just did that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so, and we had expenses when we did the joint exhibit, but I don't think there'd be anything close to that, so if you
Probably
want to
not.
knock that down.
Ask a question.
Marcy? Yeah.
Linda, so typically, I mean, I know we did the storage, the storage racks,
Right.
but what other kinds of expenses typically do we have?
The only expenses for storage will be like wraps and things, and the museum has been furnishing them, so it'd be nice to have some in there so that we could provide for our own wraps, but I don't think we need that much, because the racks are already purchased, and we installed the slats like we
Okay.
brought up before, so
So what would you suggest we should allocate then for the City Museum program? 2,000 instead of 1,500? I just want to be sure that we have something allocated there, because that relationship with the museum is, I think, still in its infancy. And
we probably should include it in the hospital project.
there is that project, yes, which we've talked about with the museum.
Also, if you notice tonight, we have beautiful labels and a poster that Roger Conrad did, and the museum did that for us tonight as a favor.
But that should come out of gallery, city
to me.
gallery.
So that would come out of
City
Going
Gallery.
forward.
So I'd rather shift it over.
To
That's
City
why
Ga-
I think 1,500 probably would be
Okay.
appropriate. I
For
mean,
museum.
if we do another joint show
Right.
with the museum at some point, then we will need more funds. But I know they've got their year mapped out. Wendy sent it, right? She sent you a
Yeah.
copy of it.
I'd like to shift some money over to City Gallery so that we can hire Roger Conrad to do the very professional-looking signage.
So I'm okay if you guys are okay with shifting it and making it more like 1,500.
Okay.
I think that's-
If
I mean,
is
we did-
everybody comfortable with that?
The only reason we would need more
Okay.
funds if we did a joint exhibit would be for the promotions and for like reframing, but everything now has been framed and it's
Yeah,
fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And any new acquisitions will
what
come
I'm
out of the
hearing then
acquisition.
is a suggestion that we take 1,500 from the museum program and shift that over to the city gallery program.
Or
So
wherever
what-
you want to
What are
put
the
it.
city gallery expenses? Because when we were doing it, we had $500 for nails. So what is the expense that has changed for city gallery?
Well, we will be hiring Roger Conrad to make posters, for one thing.
It's not going to cost
Probably not gonna cost that much.
$4,500 for
That's
him to
why we
make
could, if you
labels.
want to, we could shift that somewhere else. I'm just saying that I
Okay.
don't think we need 3,000 for the museum
Yeah,
program.
it was, light bulbs were the most expensive item at that
That's
time.
true.
Have they been all replaced,
Kind of went
James?
by a yearly thing if light bulbs were
Light bulbs,
needed.
they've been replaced recently, I would say within a year. So.
And
Yeah.
there is no need for any hardware or anything else to be switched out. Roger did all that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we pretty much, it's nails and paint, that's pretty
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
the ongoing.
So we probably, the only expense I can see would be promotion, if we want to do anything with promotion.
Can I,
Marcy, you're the chair of that committee, so.
yeah, the
City
PR
Gallery.
budget isn't on this piece of
Oh, I was
paper,
gonna
and I think that, I would say that that budget should go under PR for anything we do, for cards, posters.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad
Everybody
you brought
comfortable with
up.
that?
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
might I also make the case for the mentor program, because at the moment we have 5 mentor student relations that we can do in the summer. Interest is growing, and I guess if it is 1,250
Mhm.
that the educator, might I suggest that we allocate some of that money?
Well, do we have a PR
Towards that.
budget on here?
I
No,
don't see
that's
PR
what I was
broken
asking
budget.
about.
I don't think we've
I don't
It's
see
not
PR
on
broken
there.
out.
budget.
PR
so-
wasn't broken out
It has
last
never
year.
been
Yeah,
broken
it's-
out.
It was in our
Never has
packet.
Yeah, we've,
So I
al-
wrote something.
Oh,
and
it
we-
was, okay.
and it wasn't
we've
on
always
this.
paid for PR. We've done our own PR, and if we've paid for anything, it's been out of the projects. So,
Right.
But we have a PR
but I think it's a
committee.
good idea that we do have a
That's true.
PR budget. I think that's an excellent idea.
Well, then maybe we make this not an ad hoc committee. Maybe we make it an actual committee, because at the moment, public
The PR committee.
PR is ad hoc. So if we're to have a budget,
We should
we have
definitely
a
change it. Yes, we will
Okay.
have to, yeah.
yeah?
Well,
Well,
isn't PR
let's-
is not an ad hoc committee? It's
It
one
is.
of our
It-
committees.
it is an ad hoc
got
committee.
It's an ad hoc-
changed?
It is
No
right
longer
now.
have public relation committee?
I have PR as a standing committee.
Oh, you
Uh,
do?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I have
ongoing.
Okay.
We've
I have
always
it
had a
written
public
down
All right.
relations committee.
ad hoc. But okay.
Okay, so let's,
Who's on that meeting?
to
Linda.
Okay.
to recapitulate, we've talked about shifting the $1,500 from
Anywhere.
the city museum program. Is everybody comfortable with using that to create a PR budget?
Yes.
Yes.
And I
Okay.
think we should take some of that city gallery budget too and give them some, I don't know, there was an ad hoc committee meeting this week, and one of the things that we had to do was to go and find, to see what photographs were on the website, which is the PR committee's charge. And there's nothing there, it's gone. I mean, you can't find anything.
That's
So
because.
somebody has to go in and spend some time. Now, does that cost money? Or is
No,
it just
I-
volunteer time?
But
I
it
don't know.
doesn't. It takes knowledge. The platform is really complicated, and the thumb drive you gave me, I've been working with that, and the way I want to do it is to get it in there in a way that is easy for anybody else to insert stuff to, so
Right.
that
Google Drive.
we get it right first time.
Right.
You
So
know,
it's really your labor that we're talking about, and you're a volunteer.
yeah.
But I just want to tell you, so I don't forget, that the city website has 84 photographs of public art that was done in 2013.
Yeah.
So you might want to take a look at that.
We have the
Sure.
photographs.
I wanted to come back to the city gallery budget, and I don't know who paid for the snacks tonight, but
The artist.
The artist.
I would love to see the city gallery have their own budget for reception. I think it's a real hospitality that we would provide, not the artist, because I think that we're hosting the show.
Mhm.
So it'd be nice it attracts people to come. It celebrates the work. The artist has done the work, you know, they brought their work from the studio.
I think you'd have to change the contract. The contract currently stipulates that the artist will supply
Sure, I mean,
refreshments for a show.
yeah, that's up to the gallery committee, but I would love to see a budget for that, because I feel like a lot of galleries, most every gallery museum provides for that, and so it'd be nice for the artist.
Well,
you
if
know.
the city gallery has $3,000 allocated, that would probably
Yeah, or
be
1,500 I think is fine, you know? Just enough for snacks or
That's
wine
the
per
burden
show.
here.
There's a quarter.
sufficient. That's a whole lot more than we
Can I
need.
interject here?
Yes, Linda?
Marcy and I had already talked about the city gallery, and one of the things, the biggest things right now that we would like to do is to have Roger, or have you talked to Roger yet about it? To do the
I
labels.
was waiting to see if we had money to do it.
Okay, to do the labels for the show, because it has moved. Roger used to do them all volunteer. He's not on the commission anymore. And now it's come down to the artists doing them, which sometimes they're, you know, the last minute, it's not a good practice. So Marcy and I talked, or she talked to Roger, and he's willing to do it, but he needs to be paid for it, obviously. And so I'd rather see the money used for that kind of thing than paying for reception.
Sure,
And-
I mean,
and
why
the
not
other thing
both?
is, I think when people come for reception nowadays, most of them don't come for the food. They come to see the artist, and I think if they have a few bottles of wine and water, that's enough. I mean, personally, I don't think I'd rather spend our money on making the reception look good and getting the PR out there rather than have to spend the money on the food.
And I
So-
wouldn't mind if we knew, because there's only, 5 of these a year,
Yeah,
every
it's not
other
very
month.
many.
or 6.
There's less.
If we were
four.
asked to bring something, like I'll bring something, you know, we don't have to have a budget for it. We can all just bring
Well,
something.
we could talk about that in committee,
Okay.
so.
I don't think we need to budget
Okay, we
food.
can bat that around. So what I'm hearing so far is that we have $1,500 that we want to move from the city museum program, and we feel there's a need for a PR budget. So I would suggest that we shift that $1,500 to PR, and that we go forward from there. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. We have yet to talk about art education. That's the next item on this list. And that's an initial budget line item to begin the work on the next book that we're going to develop. And we'll talk about that later in the agenda, what that subject of that book might be. So this, as you know, will probably be a 2 or even 3-year project as we develop the ideas for a book, find out who's going to do the editing, who's going to do the writing, et cetera, and figure out what the marketing is, and so on. So this first expenditure, as with the previous book, will get that project rolling.
Can I ask what the budget was for the last book, Michael?
The total budget?
Total budget, I'm not sure I remember, but I think it was around 17,000?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Is that right?
17,000. The last year we had gone up to $9,600 for the third year, and I don't remember what the first 2 years were, but all told it was like 17,600.
Right.
And is the exhibition coinciding with it part of the book, or how is that budgeted? That's a museum.
The
Extra?
museum
I
covered
think the
it.
museum covered
They
the...
launched it at the museum.
Yeah,
they launched
covered
it.
And it took 3 years to develop the book? Is that
Yeah,
the timeline?
yeah, because it was all volunteers, and we didn't have any background or experience in doing it. And so we wanted to go slowly and carefully, and I think the same thing will apply this time. Maybe it'll be 2 years. I'm not saying necessarily it's going to be 3, but at least we'll get it initiated this coming year. Public art we've talked about already, and copier rental supplies, all that sort of thing. So where we stand then is with that one change, a budget we could submit as a proposal to the city council.
Um,
Any further discussion? Betty?
Well, I think that like two items that are in flux for me that I'm interested in working on, the book and the new initiatives committee that we're discussing later, might affect this budget, because I'd like to see the new initiatives committee have a budget. I don't know how long it takes to get things in motion for it, but if it's a year, will we not see new initiatives happen
The whole
until
idea behind
2021?
the new programs ad hoc committee was to use that as a laboratory, if you will, to test out ideas and to generate ideas, and then narrow that down within the workings of that committee and refine and develop proposals for programs that would then come to this commission and then be discussed and debated and probably go back to committee. And then if a new program emerges, then we'll initiate that new program. So there's no necessity for a budget per se for that program committee, because they're going to be feeding to the commission.
Okay, so our meetings prior to this meeting about a budget, like when I proposed 5K, was that for,
That was strictly
or up for
internal
discussion?
discussion within
Okay,
our ad hoc committee.
okay.
Can I ask?
But until we as a committee really
Vote
sit
on it,
down
sure.
and really talk through the new programs that we want to then bring to this commission, it stays within the committee.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, Linda.
So this art awards, that's something we haven't had before. Is that what you're talking about?
No, we have had $750 before.
Oh, I see. This is
Yeah.
because it says Emerging Artist Award, so that confused me.
That's because if we do initiate an emerging artist program in this coming budget
Cycle.
year, we would at
That's-
least have a
that
little
funds.
money to
Okay.
fund a first crack at
Right.
the emerging artists. Maybe it'll just be a show of 5 emerging artists. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Right.
in the first year. But again, this is not something that's going to happen overnight, but
So
the
I
thought
have a
was to
follow-up
have some money
question.
there. Yes, follow-up question.
Follow-up question is, so in the city gallery, if we sit down and decide we don't need 3,000 eventually, can we transfer that money back into another area, or is that not okay on the budget side? Because I remember, James, where there was some discussion about whether we could do that.
James, what do
Yeah.
you think?
So
We've done it.
kind of the standard budgeting rules. Well, yeah, so let me start with the standard rule. It gets complicated, but the standard rule is that the city manager has the ability to move, if you go slightly over on one line item, he can move the funding over from another line item. The part that I think I said last year was that if we plan to, let's say, scrap a program and have a new program instead, and that's going to, $5,000 from this program is moving to this one, I would recommend that go back to council.
But it
Sure.
could go back.
And it could go back on as a consent item to just get approval, because in theory, council's approving these programs for the
Right.
city for the
Sure.
year.
And we did do that once. There were no city public art projects that year, and so we had no plaque expenditures, because the public art budget is for a plaque for work that the city does, like Fun for All or the Trimp and Arch. And we didn't expend it, and that's exactly what we did. We gave the money, I think, to, I forget what we gave it
Yeah,
to.
okay.
Somebody was short, and then
Right.
it went to city council, and they approved it. My difficulty with the budget in general is that we're putting money without saying how that money would be used by that committee. Like, I think that probably there has to be a PR budget, but what is it used for? I mean, if I were a city council member, that's a question I'd ask. They want this money, what are they gonna use it for? What would the expense be?
Well-
That's what I'm not clear on.
For
We discuss
example,
posters, postcards, promotions for the city gallery shows, as well as any
But it doesn't
initiatives
cost
we take
anything.
forward.
Advertising
We
in the
would put,
OVN.
articles in the paper, we were never charged for that, and putting things
Aren't
on
we,
Facebook
aren't we
doesn't cost
paying
anything.
someone to make these posters for us?
We've
we
never
would
done
be,
that.
if we're going to be using Roger Conrad, we'd be paying him to make the posters. Similarly, if we really want to promote these gallery openings, an ad in the OVN would not be remiss. So
They'll do it for free. Why would we pay?
they won't do an ad for free.
No.
They
Well,
gave
they
we
don't.
did a
They're-
whole spread with an article with the date of the show, and it was really fabulous what we did.
Well,
It
that was an
didn't cost a
article.
penny.
That was an article.
That was an
But
article.
if they don't want to
But
do
it
an article.
really brought people to the shows because it was like a half page in the OVN.
I've done a lot of publicity for Ojai Youth Opera, and I know that some of that publicity came with a price. The price was by the ad, you know, and that was just the way it was.
And that's
So
the-
yeah,
We
So you-
also do have website costs, and
yeah.
there were some. I'm blanking on the word modules. I don't know if that's the right word that Commissioner Byrne had
Purchased.
subscribed to. So those
The
are yearly
website.
costs too. I would say that's probably $400 to $500.
Can I?
And
Yeah,
what's it
they're
called?
Yeah, I mean, when we were setting up this live form application for the mentor program, there's some cost involved in that.
Yes.
And you can get so many things free. You know, your first 5 free, but then anything after that is you're going to pay for it. So
And can I
yeah.
say something?
Yes, Linda?
And it is kind of nebulous because it is nebulous, because we're predicting costs that we're asking for a budget and we're going to work within our budget, but we can't tell you what every single thing's going to be before we do it, because every year is different. And so I think that we all are pretty astute at getting the most bang for our buck.
And I think
the
we've
city
been
council
responsible.
understands that. I mean, we all donate our time as it is. We're not asking to get paid for that, so.
I have a question.
Marcy?
Sammy, do we need to purchase a new platform for the website?
We spoke about that. Like Linda and I have spoken about that, and with James Han, who's brilliant. I want to publicly recognise James Han for all the help he gives. We felt at the moment that this was, let's just go with this for the next year or so. And then at that point, when we have everything settled and we know what we're doing, then shift platforms. Because, I mean, Betty had a good suggestion. I mean, she's got good suggestions about different platforms that are much more malleable and easy to deal with. But for the moment, this is what we've got, and it would be tricky right now in flux to shift everything right now. So, I mean, once we get everything solid and transferable in a way that nothing will get lost, I think that was James's expert opinion on that, and Linda and I spoke about that too. So,
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'm just counting on Sammy to pitch story ideas to the OVN, so we get the freebies.
Yeah, but I think the crucial thing that Sammy said in that regard is that the OVN, like all newspapers, they'll publicize as long as you buy ads.
Yeah.
That's what works, and we know it works.
Yeah,
It's
that's
certainly
definitely
proves to be the case with all of the stuff from Santa Barbara that appears in the OVN. It's because they're buying big ads.
yeah.
And I think Linda and I both write for the Ojai Quarterly, and that's an option as well to advertise.
Right, exactly.
And I have to
Yes.
say, in defense of the Ojai Valley News, we do have a local paper. There's not a lot of them around.
That's right.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're blessed to have them, and they have expenses, and they have to meet their payroll, and they have to produce a product. And so I'm okay if we do have to, at some point, decide that we do want to buy
They'd
that.
be
or
to
whatever.
our advantage and could help sustain them. Okay, any
Well-
other questions?
I have one. So before we move on, I want to clarify the status of the public relations committee. I've always had it like ad hoc in brackets committee.
We're going to discuss that later in the
Okay.
in the agenda. We'll discuss what's ad hoc, what isn't, and what the
Okay,
rules
good.
are.
Okay, great. Because should I be taking minutes? Should I be taking minutes of all our meetings and things, or
No, you don't need to.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm open to a motion to present this as our budget proposal to the city council.
I move that we present this budget to the city council with the exception of the 2 changes where we redirect $1,500 from the city museum program to the public relations committee ad hoc or whatever form it's going to take.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
I have
Opposed?
can I ask one comment?
Yeah.
I just feel like the budget is so skewed towards art grants. It's like a lot of it is for art grants. And if this is sort of the budget that we're working with, $50,000, give or take each year, and we do have new programs coming in, if Marcy or the chair of that committee is flexible on like putting more money back into original programming that the Arts Commission puts forward.
I have to say that the grants program is probably the featured program that the Arts Commission offers. And a lot of artists in town and all of that are interested in getting this money, and it helps encourage emerging artists and new and all that. So it kind of relates to the emerging artists too. But it's always been the bulk of the budget historically. So I don't know that we're prepared to retreat from what
Well,
we've been offering.
Yeah, I'm not saying let's not grant people money. I'm just saying, is there a way to uniformly, I just feel like seeing the voting process for the grants last time based on percentages of asks, like perhaps there's a way to say, here's what the grant is for, $5,000 or something, and limiting how much they are. And then having it be solid and then moving the rest of that budget for other projects. So how would you get money for other projects? Just put those in the budget?
I think we have to develop new projects
Before you put 'em in the
as
budget.
ideas, and then if there's a need for funding, then we
Okay.
try and find the money.
Okay.
But until we have new projects, we operate on the basis of what we're doing now.
And if I
Okay, the
could,
motion is on the floor, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Should we do a roll call on this? We probably should. If you would, please, James?
yeah, we could do that. Commissioner Harmon?
Yes.
Give me 1 second. Commissioner Addison?
Yes.
Commissioner Tosher?
Yes.
Commissioner Golden?
Yes.
Commissioner Zaringer?
Yes.
And Commissioner Nguyen.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I can add one thing
Please.
after the fact, but just for people who haven't been through the budget process with us before, the urgency is we have to get the Arts Commission's requests in ahead of time when the city is preparing the budget. But like was mentioned earlier, there is flexibility after the fact to go back and modify. So it is
Right.
a little bit nebulous right now, but getting it submitted at this point is in the best interest of the commission.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the awards. And our recommendation is that we review previous Lifetime Achievement recipients and add potential names to the list. And I think it's really, you've all had a chance to look at the list of those who've previously received the award. But it's really, if there are new names that you would like to consider, then we can put together a list for our next meeting of the old names and the new names, and then we can go forward from there.
Michael, I have a question before we even start that. I was looking through this, and I noticed several of these people have moved away. If someone has moved away, to me, that sort of says, I mean, if they were here a long, long time and they moved away, it would be different. But I think if we're granting a city award, my feeling, kind of just off the top of my head, is that they should be a resident still.
I would agree.
I
sort of
agree, yeah.
Okay.
Take that as a given, that the
Okay.
award is for a resident of Ojai.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's one of the
One of the
descriptions
criteria.
is that they've contributed to the community. It's one of the, so that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so we'll take some of those names off. So let's go around the table. Anybody have any new names you'd like to add to the list?
Can we come back next time with that?
I wanted to
And
nominate
come back next
someone.
time, too.
I wanted to nominate Sergio Aragones.
He's received.
He's already
received.
He's already
received?
received
Okay,
it.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Could we
Done.
get the list of who's already
I
gotten
thought
it?
that was distributed with
I don't have it in mine.
It was distributed, yeah, with our
I
last
have it in my
agenda.
packet.
With our last agenda, it was
I didn't bring
for the meeting that we had to cancel.
And it's on the website.
James, could you maybe email it out to us?
For sure, we can distribute that out. It was in
Okay.
the last packet. I missed it in this one. So
All right, well, let's just move forward then, and at our next meeting, you will all have had a chance to look at the list, because it's on the website, and James is going to distribute it. And then at the next meeting, we will narrow that list down, and I think we may end up doing something like each one of us gets to say which name on the list they would
We
like.
just did this, didn't we just do
We
this?
just did that with the Hope Fraser, so we're
Oh.
going
Did
to
with
do
Hope
somewhat the
Fraser.
same
That's what it
procedure,
was,
okay?
yeah.
Right now, though, I mean, I have somebody I'd like to nominate. I'd like to nominate Julia Zonic. I think she's a terrific contributor and she's only, I won't say her age because she'd be annoyed
Who,
with me.
I didn't get
Julia Zonic.
Julia Zonic, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
She's on
is
the
she?
list.
Well, Smitty is, but.
They're together.
Together.
Oh, they are?
Should I look it
Okay.
up? I don't
Oh,
know if it's
right.
in
I
there.
just read about Smitty. I think
Okay.
I just saw. Okay. All right. Great.
All right,
If
so
they're both there, that's
at our next
terrific.
meeting then,
Add her if she's not there.
we will come back to this topic at our next meeting,
James
and
has
everybody
the
will have reviewed the list, and everybody will have brainstormed and come up with a name or two of people that you would like to have added, okay?
And these can be support people too, right? They don't have to be,
It's a lifetime achievement in the arts, and so,
Joan
for
Kemper
example,
got it.
Joan Kemper got the award. She's not an artist
because
per
I'm actually
se.
thinking somebody
So
from
it-
the
Other
music
people
festival.
like that got
Yeah.
it. The
Yeah.
gal at the
Okay.
Art Center got it. What's
Yeah.
her name?
Yeah, Ruth Hemming, yeah.
Yes, Ruth Hemming got it, and other people like that.
Right.
So, yeah, the criteria are really important. I feel the criteria is really important to look at.
Yes,
when
do
you
look
know.
at the criteria. That's
pass?
in your packet this time.
Oh, thank you.
That's the pass list that James did.
Okay, let us move on. Now we come to the Program Development Ad Hoc Committee. And we were going to formalize that at our last meeting, but we had to cancel that meeting because we didn't have a quorum. So the only issue here, really, tonight, is to decide, do we want to make this an ad hoc committee or a permanent committee? The reason I would suggest it be an ad hoc committee is that then we set a specific set of goals and a specific timeline. And that apparently is what the Brown Act requires if it's going to be an ad hoc committee. So the goals, as I understand from our previous discussion, when we talked about creating this, was to create a, what's the word I want? A Petri dish of sorts for new programs to be proposed after work on them by this committee and development of them in a schematic way so that it's clear what's being proposed, and then the commission can debate and discuss and could go back to the committee and so on. So my suggestion would be that we say quite simply this ad hoc committee is designed to do just that, to devise and present proposals for new programs for the commission. And that we make that a ad hoc committee that has a termination date of the last day of this calendar year, which would give 9 months for that committee to develop ideas. Then we would have the remaining part of this coming fiscal year, that is to say from January through June, to really work on the ideas and flesh it out within the commission discussion and then include it in next year's budget proposal. Unless something comes forward that could be initiated this year.
Is that a motion that you're making? then?
No, I'm making a suggestion
Just a
for
suggestion.
discussion, okay? Betty?
I'm wondering if it could be, if it was just a committee and not ad hoc, because there wouldn't be a timeline on developing new ideas, and so you wouldn't feel like you were limited to new ideas. Like Marcy had a great idea for a festival that I'd love to talk to her about, but I feel like if there's a timeline on it, then we can't propose new ideas for the years forthcoming, or is it just for 9 months that we
The
can
one
suggest it?
reason and the driving reason for it to be a ad hoc committee is then it does not have to be announced with public notice. It does not have to be held at a place where the public can attend.
Can I add one
James,
thing?
please?
And it may be, I see we put this on the agenda this way, discuss goals and timeline, and that might have been my mistake. it doesn't necessarily have to have a timeline. It should have said maybe goals or timeline. Typically for an ad hoc committee, there needs to be a specific set of goals or a specific endpoint. So I threw the word timeline in there because that's one way to set kind of a goals and endpoint, but it doesn't need to have, I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't need to have a, this day we get this done, this day we get this done. It would be, here's the goals we're working towards. And typically, I threw this out at one of the prior meetings. We had a Libby Bowl ad hoc committee, I'm sorry. And they were to review the 2016 Libby Bowl concert series. So it wasn't necessarily like, on this day, but it's a defined purpose. So I don't think we need to get necessarily hung up on the timeline exactly, but it's more we need to have a defined purpose.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought when you and I talked that both had to be spelled out. If it's just the goals, then I think what is being suggested, that it be an ad hoc committee that has the goal of developing new programs.
Yeah, timeline's one way of doing it, and so
But there's a termination to the ad hoc committee. Is that right? Is that the difference?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the nature of that committee, ideas, you can't really schedule ideas. They come when they come. And, it might be like one day after the supposed end date, if we use that you have this incredible mind-blowing idea. So that's why I say ad hoc, and the ad hoc committee sets out specific goals.
But-
and once all of those are achieved, then you can dissolve your ad hoc.
But keep in mind, so if
It's
the
fluid.
if the committee ends, if the committee ends and the next day there's another goal, the commission can always reform that committee or pick different members and form it. So it's not necessarily they aren't supposed to be standing commission or standing committees. If we want to have a standing committee, we need to form it as a standing committee, but we need to define what the ad hoc committee is working on.
So, Christine.
Yes, well, I have a fairly strong reaction to this. That's a very different take on it. I want to be involved in anything that has to do with setting goals and new programs for the Arts Commission. I think all 7 of us should be doing that at our goal meeting, which we haven't done our 5-year goals. And I think it would be appropriate to do this as part of our 5-year goals so that all of us have something to say about where this commission is going to move in the future. I'm really uncomfortable that an ad hoc would set goals and programs for the Arts Commission.
No, you misunderstand. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you because you misunderstand what I've said, and that is that committee would develop ideas which they would present then to the entire commission, and the entire commission would have ample opportunity to discuss, to review, to analyze, to criticize, and send it back to the committee. So in that sense, as with other things that emerge out of committees, the commission would have absolute opportunity.
And I
for
hear
in-
you,
in
but I didn't
shaping.
misunderstand you. I just don't agree. I really want to be at the starting point, and I want to be one of those persons that can give ideas to come back to the whole commission to discuss. To me, this is goal setting, and it should be done by all of us.
It's
I
not-
feel pretty strongly about that. I don't think I misunderstood you. It's a really different point of view.
Okay. Well, I think if that attitude prevailed, then we could all say the same thing about every committee, that
Yeah.
we
I
really
think we
want to be-
should.
Oh, so it
What's
should
the
be a
point of a
committee of the
committee,
whole
then?
for everything?
Absolutely.
make any sense.
Well, the Brown Act says that we really are supposed to have everything come before all 7 of us. We're not supposed to be making decisions and bringing
We're not-
forward
we're not
ideas.
Wait a
making-
minute, wait a
no,
minute.
Minority of us.
We're not talking about making
Well, let's
decisions.
ask James.
Well, so recommendations from the committee need to come to the commission for approval.
Right.
Exactly,
and
just
so-
as they do for public art or any other
right.
activity on the part of a committee. It comes
Yeah.
to the commission as a whole for discussion and
We
review.
brainstormed the whole 7 of us for
Can
public
I say
art.
something, Michael?
Yes, please.
I think the idea of having a committee, or an ad hoc committee, whatever you want to call it, with a loose goal of looking at new programs is a great idea. I personally have enough on my plate with what I've already got to do a good job with it. And if somebody wants to devote their time to coming up with some new ideas that we haven't thought of, or if maybe I come up with an idea and I throw it to them and say, what do you think of this idea? And they go and they flesh it out.
permissible?
I'm
Sure,
okay
it's
with that
permissible,
because
of course.
it does always, everything comes back to us and we can always say, no, that's not we don't like that idea, or yeah, let's go with it. They're not developing the program, right? They're just coming up with ideas.
Coming up with ideas and setting
So-
out a structure and a way
Yeah.
it could work,
So
and then that would come to the
like,
commission as a whole.
So if I'm understanding the concept correctly, like the other 2 meetings ago, the last one we had, I think we talked about the sculpture park. Well, if that was an idea they came up with, and they said, oh, we think that would be a great program to start to develop a sculpture project or park, they would come to us and present that idea. Is that correct?
Same thing is true if the Public Art Committee
Right.
came up with that idea.
Yeah.
They would have to
But that's the
develop
kind of
in
thing
the
you're talking
committee.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
So
I'll
they are
remind
gonna-
you that the Public Art Committee did not do that. We brainstormed around the table, all 7 of us, what we thought would be good public art projects. And what the Public Art Committee did was went and researched the top 3 and brought them back to the 7. That's how it worked. And that, I think, is the correct
But that's
Brown
what they're
Act way
talking,
for
that's
it
what
to
they're
work.
talking about doing. They're just coming up with the ideas. I just gave it as an
We came
example.
up with the ideas,
I just gave
all
it as
7 of us.
I just
Maybe there are several ways to do things, Christine, not just one way.
There's
and I
the
think-
Brown Act.
Well, the Brown Act apparently would be satisfied, as James has suggested, if we have specific goals for this committee. Is that correct, James?
Yes, and like I said, the key is that the recommendations come back to the full commission
Exactly.
for discussion and adoption.
Exactly.
Or recommendation, I'm sorry.
And I just like to add that, anybody with any idea is absolutely, this is not a closed committee. This is a committee that wants to, accept ideas and everything and hash them about. We would do the work of the committee in formulating how to, organize and present these things, but this is by no means a exclusive brain trust sort of idea. This is my view of what this ad hoc committee is about. So
Okay.
Is there a motion on this? I think we've discussed it a great deal. Could I have a motion?
I move that we create an ad hoc committee, how do you word it?
Program development,
For program
to
development.
develop program ideas to
Future-
present to the commission.
Okay, that's what I move.
Program ideas incubator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
well, I second the motion.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? Let's have a roll call vote on this as well, please, James?
Commissioner Harmon,
Yes.
Commissioner Edison,
Yes.
Commissioner Tosher,
Yes.
Commissioner Golden,
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Zaringer,
Yes.
and Commissioner Nguyen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on then to the Art Grants Committee.
Okay,
Nancy.
we're kind of, we're in limbo until around July when we're going to have
Gentlemen,
the-
could you take your discussion outside, please? Go ahead.
Yeah, the Grants Committee, we're kind of hibernating until July. We tweaked the application and a lot of in the documents that go along with it. We did that last year. And I looked through it again. I don't anticipate any other changes. So we're kind of not very active until July when the city will publish and you guys will publicize the availability of, and the applications will be available. And then in August, I'll have another grants workshop.
Okey doke.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Linda.
Do you have a timeline yet? Do you have dates or anything yet?
I do.
Did you give them to Sammy so we know what to do
Yeah,
PR-wise?
I'll email you.
Because we need to get the word out
Yeah.
ahead.
Okey doke. And we move on to item F, public art. Ms. Golden?
All right, so let's start with Sane Center over on Matilaha. And we're, of course, still waiting for the public artwork to be installed. And I spoke to Aubrey Belkine and to the artist Ray Serino, and the panels have been formed, and you have a photo in your packet
Right. That's cool.
of what it looks like, and it's really pretty exciting to see. I didn't realize how thick it would be. It really looks pretty substantial, and there's a two photos back to back that show different sections of the panels. And what they're working on now and what has slowed this down is how to get these panels together. And they had to procure helium, and they had to procure medical grade helium, which is almost impossible because helium is one of those chemicals that when it's gone from the earth, it's gone.
It's expensive.
It can never be replaced. And so it's a real premium kind of a thing to get your hands on. There's even a movement around to have people not do helium balloons because of the scarcity of helium on the planet. So that's where they are. And they're talking about April installation. So I'm thinking May.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. But they are working on it. It is in progress. There's no strange reason for the delay. It's just the normal, typical stuff that happens with public art.
It's going to be a wonderfully visible piece of public art, too. That Sane Center is already generating lots of programs,
buzz.
lots of people coming into that building. And Hip Vegan as well is very active. So a lot of folks are going to see that.
Can I ask you a question, Christine, about that sculpture?
Sure.
Are you working on publicity, or is our committee working on
The
publicity for
PR
that?
would be working on publicity.
Okay, so
Um,
that's
so
for May, you
It
think?
helps to know that, okay, so this is good to know that May is the predicted.
So we can get ready for.
Right, yeah.
Can
Let's
you-
talk.
Is
We'll
that
talk.
correct? Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Okay.
Let's talk. And the next thing, there's quite a few things for public art here. They're broken out in different agenda items here, and I see the utility boxes under F. So it's a move to reconsider the utility box project, and I really have to say that back in, oh gosh, it seems like so long ago, November, we are down to 4 commission members, and it was suggested that we table the utility box project because to continue the work on it would take action on the part of the Arts Commission. You're involved in this the whole way. So I thought we were tabling the next steps. But now it seems as though we're looking at, the vote was 5-1 to do the utility box project. It took more than one commission meeting to talk about why we wanted to do that project now. And there really good reasons were given. And those commissioners voted for it. And I think that the vote now should be to move forward with the project, not to reconsider whether or not we're going to do it. We already voted to do it.
Well, the question is whether to reconsider whether to take it off the table. It was tabled.
Yes, I'll move to take it off the table. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Sorry, the motion
I'll
fails
second.
for lack of a second.
She
Oh,
just seconded it.
okay, sorry.
Just was
I didn't
checking.
hear it until you said it. Any further discussion on the motion to take this off the table and to bring it back into play? Sammy?
I like the idea of the project. I really do, and I think the past commission's work should be recognised. And but what I feel is this is a resources thing. I mean, how I know that I'm pretty overstretched with what I have going on, and I wouldn't be able to take anything on, so I wouldn't want to vote for anybody else to have to take anything on. So,
Well, can I respond to that?
Sure,
please?
of course.
Okay, so this project would be covered under the public art ordinance, and it would involve a public art jury. So there's no extra work on the part of any commission members except for the public art committee, which is Michael, Marcy, and I. We would work on a request for proposal with James. Chris Byrne, who was on the commission, has already told me that she will help with that because she's done RFPs for that kind of a project. So she could look over and see if we have all the right elements. But that document would come back to a commission meeting for everyone here to look at before it went out. There's no timeline or rush on this at all. But it's a public art jury. Only one member of the commission serves on that public art jury. They would look at the proposals that come in. They would bring back to us the proposals. We simply review and say yay or nay. We have the final word on it. And what I would like to do at the April meeting is to come back to you with a timeline and what the tasks are and who is responsible for it, and give you a little bit of the history at how we arrived at deciding that this would be the perfect project to do. We have never done a project where the Arts Commission has spent Public Art Fund money. And this is small and manageable and would allow, James and I have talked about this, it would allow us to create a procedural manual for future public art projects. We could get our legs, what's that expression? We'd get that.
Get our feet wet.
Get our feet wet, at least, maybe up to the waist, because no matter what you do, it's going to be controversial. So I'm
think it's
very
great.
excited. James and I had already started a lot of discussions about how to proceed, and then we halted because we were down to 4 members. And I would really like to get back on track with this.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion to take this off the table, which would then initiate the process that Christine has just spoken of, because it was approved as a project by the commission. As she said, it was delayed because we had a period of
4 of
time
us.
when there were only 4 of us.
Can I say
Any further
something?
discussion? Linda?
I think before you count on Chris Byrne, she stepped off this commission because she could not commit to the time. Then she had personal issues, and I do not think she's going to be willing to do
I
this.
spoke to her a week ago, and she said that she would be happy to look
Well,
at the document. so.
Okay, but
Okay, well, that's a good caution. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
me.
Okay.
It's so exciting.
Motion
Thank you,
passes.
everybody.
Okay.
Thank you for putting me to
Let us
work.
move on to the,
All right, Trimpen Arch Ad Hoc Committee, Marcy.
yes,
Okay,
it's
this
her
is-
committee, not yours, yes.
This has been described as the Trimpen Arch Ad Hoc Committee final report. I don't have a final report. The Trimpen Arch Ad Hoc Committee is still viable and in effect. We have not accomplished all of the goals.
And that's my fault that it's phrased this way, because I thought that the goals relating to the Trimpen Arch had been reached, but
No, and I
we
can go
reviewed.
through them.
No, James reviewed it for me, and
And
I
I'll
want
say
to
I-
apologize. So-
I didn't have that information handily available.
Yeah.
So
So that's
some
when,
fault on my part
so
too.
that was my mistake. So all we need at this
Yeah,
point
and I
then
have
is
a
just
list
a
of-
report
Well-
of where you are and where
Okay,
you're
sure.
going.
I'd be happy to go
Okay?
through my laundry list.
Or
tell
you can delay that till the next meeting if you wish. as
Whatever
you
you'd
wish.
like. If you think we have time, I can do it tonight, or I can do it next time.
Well, let's do it now, quickly.
Okay, quickly. All right. Create signage for the arches sound mechanism. Check. Work with Trimpen on possible further softening and rounding of tones. We explored that. Check. Work with composers performing at the Bowl to pre-record compositions before and after performances. We have not achieved that. For various reasons that are out of our control. But we're working on it. Okay, planned a soft opening for the public where a local composer would be invited to pre-program the arch, possibly during the music festival.
That was done.
And interface with the MIDI player and play it live, and we did do that. However, we weren't officially included as an official event at the music festival. We weren't included in the brochure. We were given a time that was not really a viable time to maximize the number of people that would see it. And the way this was originally envisioned by
Jeff Hayden.
Jeff Hayden, he envisioned a greater role. The Trimpen Arch was to have a greater role in the music festival, and when the arch was dedicated, it actually had a lot of fanfare during the music festival. It was a major event, and since then, nothing really has happened other than we weren't even given it. We created our own event without any participation from the music festival. So we really need to work on getting, not for this year, it's too late obviously if you're programming for the music festival for this year, but for next year to be, for the music festival to be more inclusive and to include the Trimpen Arch as it was originally envisioned and promoted by Jeff Hayden. Okay.
Let's, you and I get together and talk about this
Okay.
particular issue, please. I have some ideas to
Okay, great.
address
I
that.
welcome that. Create a short video or slideshow to post on the public art pages of the website that featured Trimpen and the renovation of the bowl and the selection of the Trimpen piece. So I believe there might footage and photos exist, so we would have to edit that and.
They're on the website, aren't they? There's a YouTube link.
Yeah, on the website already. Yeah.
Okay, but it needs to be updated, needs to be,
Okay.
Yeah, on the Arts Ojai, on our website, that's the one thing that's there for public art. There's a video of the installation of the Trimpen Arch. That's the only thing that public art is up there, but that's up there. It was-
I think we could give and you'll be covering this with your art tours, but, give a history of the arch and kind of more background information to accompany the video. Maybe a voiceover during, when showing the installation, do a voiceover, whatever. We need to work, we need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
expand it and make it into a great little documentary piece. Explore enhancements originally suggested to maximize the arch's potential for community interaction with the sound. That would involve, working with the concert promoters, event promoters, to have the arch on during entry and then off during the show, obviously, and then on again when the concert is over. We haven't done that yet.
I think James Hahn actually has a switch where he turns it on and off.
It's actually an application on a cell phone, and
Well,
he's not the only one that has it.
But
It-
he
we've
does
had
make sure
issues.
that works, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and we program it around the events. Both James Hunt and myself have access to that and program it.
However, we've had people override our schedule and turn it off. There are ways to do that.
We had issues where people were unplugging and tampering with it actually in the box office, but I will say in the last 6 months, I don't think we've kind of gotten a handle
It's
on it.
improved. At one event, they put some objects underneath the arch so that the mechanism wouldn't trigger. So anyway, it's an ongoing issue. We still need to babysit that and get cooperation with the different concert promoters so that we'd love to be able to, and it was envisioned by Jeff Hayden also, that, let's say, the Temptations, they're coming. We'd love to get a few bars of one of their popular songs and program that into the arch so that when people are walking in and when they're walking out, they hear they'll recognize.
Sounds like a full-time job.
No, well,
just kidding.
they write it out.
I think that's a point well taken. Councilman Wyrick.
I'm here as just a citizen commenting on this agenda item. if
We're
that's
happy
all
to
right.
have you with us.
Okay. And I just want to say a couple things, okay? Because to me, this whole effort is about integrity in terms of the integrity of this installation.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so happy to see at least what appears to be three right now individuals focused on this because, well, just a personal thing. Does everybody know that art brought us together? They don't, no.
Really?
We
That's
do now.
news. That's news.
No.
And,
Cynthia said no, too.
okay, anyway, I was thinking of those frames, in the ag building with the students and their molds, and anyway.
Now, all of Ojai knows now.
The point I'm trying to make is that when you have three dedicated, focused, and committed individuals looking at the issue, making sure that this installation that this city it contracted for and got compromised, I think we all can agree to some degree on its integrity of its installation and the protocols for its environment, that they're focused on this and yes, I'm not talking about this should be like you say, I think everyone understands it's an ad hoc to the point of getting the protocols set. Finish restoring the integrity, both in terms of the fencing, the physical matter, the physical issues, and the protocols, to have this integrity restored as part of our best traditions in this city. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that's very important, and I'm love seeing what I'm seeing. It's inspiring just to walk there now and see how it was originally envisioned as a natural pairing with the Libby Bowl that was somewhat obscured by the compromise of that integrity. And I frankly was thrilled and would love to see one other task, and that is if some way could be found, perhaps to contact Trimpin himself or someone, to get a price, to get a cost on finishing the original installation vision. At least, and then that would be something we might want to go through our capital improvement project budget to think about finishing. Because one thing that what happens sometimes is, we compromise our design principles for budget purposes. I think my personal opinion, violated the integrity of the lawn area to some degree when we put in Libby Bowl because we ran short of money. Mm-hmm. And I would love someday to find the money to look at restoring that design integrity of the lawn area. And this kind of thing, we ran out of money, but that doesn't mean we should lose that sense of let's think about how let's restoring that over time, set that a goal, maybe not done in, any given fiscal year, but I think this committee would be great at maybe at least coming up with, what would that take?
Oh,
yes.
I was just going to say, I don't think Trimpin would have to. We have the architectural drawings. It would just be a bit.
It was
Just a
David
matter
Burry's
of,
Landscape
design.
architect.
Put a dollar number on it, so
We
we
just
can
have to
get it
bid it
into
out.
the deliberation process.
I think we'd have to ask one of our local architects, since David
I
Burry
don't
is no
want to talk
longer
about
with
how
us.
to do it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying I would like to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of this ad hoc committee come up with that as
All
part
right,
of
we'll put that on the
issue of
list.
integrity. And then I just
That on the list.
I feel like saying a few things about this whole process that we've gone through in terms of restoring the integrity of this piece. Because compromise is important when people have different points of view and there's different considerations, but not at the expense of first principles. And I'm going to give you a dramatic global example. The 737 MAX airplane
Oh, God.
Boeing fiasco. What is that? It was compromise to the extent of losing sight of first safety principles in terms of operational integrity.
For financial reasons, I should add.
Financial reasons,
Yes.
exactly. And so, yes, we can have different points of view that we try to meld together in terms of agreement, but not at the expense of the fundamental integrity and the fundamentals of the design principles involved. So I just wanted to make a comment on that interplay.
I
added it to the list.
Well said.
I also
Well said.
have, and when we're talking about the integrity of the piece, and everybody seems like they're on the same page about, why can't we take the money out of Public Art Fund to do that?
Because
I'm gonna
the
walk away from that.
Public Art Fund has, the Public Art Fund has very specific what is allowed and not allowed. And landscaping and anything on the side of a piece of public art is not allowed as an expenditure. That would have to come from capital
Oh,
improvement.
because I thought you said that it was, when you were talking about it before, that it was included on the original artist's drawings, and that's
No, it
one
was
of the
included in David
Sorry.
Burry's drawings, the architect's drawings, but it's not part of
Trimpin did
Trimpin's
not
drawings.
see that.
No.
Okay, never mind then.
Well, and maybe it's not appropriate to have this as a goal, but yeah, if it was part of the original vision that we all accepted and we're trying to achieve, again, I have no problem with looking at that as a capital improvement program goal. But again, that's to some degree secondary to, at least I would love to see some sort of order of magnitude on the money involved, so we could at least start considering that in our budget processes. So I just felt I wanted to get a couple things said that I was feeling and thinking today.
Thank you.
And I'm just, I'm
Thank
thrilled
you, Bill.
at
That's why we love to having you
what's
guys
been
here.
achieved. And
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for letting me.
Okay. Are we on?
You got more, Marcy?
We got
I have more, but that's fine. You get my point.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the point
Well,
is,
the
and I
point is
want to
that
say
there's
there's
still work to be done,
Yes.
and so we go forward, and we don't need to have a termination date because it's a committee with specific goals. So-
task oriented.
Yes.
So we're task-oriented and we're okay. Again, my apologies for misunderstanding what James told me in terms of needing both specific tasks and a termination date. That's not the case.
I misspoke. It wasn't your
Okay,
fault.
Well, anyway.
It happens,
The
right.
problem is understood now, and we go forward with both the ad hoc committee for program development and the ad hoc committee for the Trimpan Arch, right?
Okay, so I want to just add one thing to what Bill said, because there is a fourth person, and that's Barbara Hirsch, and she has been in the background also very active on this committee. And there's a fifth person, which is Ray Powers. And without him, we wouldn't have had our demo. And he's always there, ready, willing, and able to help if we call upon him. And by the way, he is now the representative from the Planning Commission to serve on our CAPA, which is the Committee to Approve Public Art. All these extra committees that you new guys will learn about this stuff. It's kind of complicated.
Okay, let us move on
Yes.
to
Public
second
art
page, which is
brochure.
Brochure expenditures,
Yeah.
costs and expenditures.
Before we get into that, I want to give a report from that ad hoc committee, because we had a meeting. And I want to pass out to you, and this is the Public Art Tour
brochure.
Ad hoc Committee that I'm giving a report on, which should preface talking about budget expense. So I'm going to pass out to you this incredible brochure that Elise DePoit brought. She'd gone to Oregon, and she found this fabulous brochure of a tour. And the committee looked at this, and those that were there, and really liked this format. So it was impossible to copy in time, but I'm going to send it around the table so you can kind of take a peek at it. And what we would like from you is just a nod that we can proceed with this kind of a thing in mind. I'm also going to pass out to you, but you must give them back to me, because Elise DePoit said you cannot keep these. It's not been a final approved. This is a tour that the city has put together. So the city has a program. So you can pass those down and just take a look, because it's similar to the one that's coming around on the glossy paper. But give it back to me when you're done so I don't get in trouble with Elise. And this is the basic idea of what we're looking at, is some kind of a pamphlet that will have a map.
Historic preservation.
Yes, that's HBC. It'll have some kind of a map on it, and then you'll have numbers and information about the different art pieces. When this glossy one comes around, you get it's really kind of nice. So does anyone want to talk about that, or give us a thumbs up or whatever on proceeding
Go
that
forward
way?
with it, do it, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
we want to make sure always that we come back here
Yeah,
with
yeah.
our ideas. Okay,
And
fabulous. Did I get all these back?
And just one point too is that
Guys out there want to see it, you have to give it back to me.
there were some incidental expenses.
Yeah, I'm going to get to
From-
that.
oh, okay.
I'm going to get to that.
I'll
I want to get to that last. Okay, notes on the meeting. We also are now recommending to all of you that rather than look at, because we have over 40 pieces of public art that we could tour. And our first thought, and we spent a lot of time on this, was that we would have 3 separate tours and that people could choose what tour they wanted to take. And we have come down to reality and really believe now that we should do one really great tour. Everyone agreed with that. So we wanted to let you know in case any of you objected to that. Anybody, or is that okay? Can we proceed?
Sense,
All right.
Sure. Would that be all of the public art?
No,
Or just
no.
a selection?
A selection,
Okay. I
but
think
as
that
you'll
makes
see
great
on
good
this,
sense.
just because it's not part of the tour doesn't mean that we can't have room on that brochure to talk about other pieces. Right.
And eventually the app, right?
Well,
We
I'm going to
would-
talk about that in a minute, because I know that she was busy and couldn't make that meeting, so you'll find out here. The brochure, okay. We feel that we should develop the brochure and the docent training And the app should come after that so that we can try it out because it turns out an app is expensive. So to do an app before we're really sure how this whole thing is going to work. So our recommendation on this is that we go forward with the pamphlet, the brochure, and with docent training that would come out of the visitor center. And we want to work with Jamie, what is his last name, from the Chamber of Commerce?
Fleming.
Yeah. We think that he would be a great assistant to us. And then once we really have that and we know it works and we're not exhausting people and it's a manageable tour, that then we would look into the app.
The only thing is, when you do an app, you can correct it. I mean, if you do it at the same time and you find out, oh, gee, I need to change something, the app you can change. It's a matter of programming. I mean, it isn't
I
that.
think we were looking at expense as well as that. But that's good to know. I'm glad
I
to
mean,
hear
I
you
think
say
the
that.
app's important.
I have a question about the app. Is there another city or public
There
institution that does an app outside like
there
that?
wasn't when I checked a couple of years ago.
I just have
'cause
safety concerns
talked to
about
the
people
city.
walking around with an app and not looking, and if there's an
Well,
option for.
I talked to the Association of Cities, but that's been a few years ago, and there was no. I asked them if they had somebody they could recommend that had done it before somewhere, so that we could use it and buy maybe a program.
Well, I'm just wondering if we need an app. That's what I'm questioning. If it's safe, if it's appropriate, like what is the concept behind the app?
You're going to be walking. You're not going to be in a car doing the app. I would
Well,
hope.
Right, but there's
What
just
Betty
people
is,
being hit
Betty,
on
you
the
know, I wish
street.
you would come to our meetings because this is the things we talk about at the meeting, and you could give some input into the meeting. We talked about all this, and we actually asked the question that you're asking, which is, do we really need the app? If we have this, if we have the walking tours, let's develop that and see, do we also need an app? Because that's the expensive part. And if we do, then we could come back for a budget
Sure.
here.
That
and
makes
go
sense.
forward. So it's all the things you're asking is what we talked about at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I've
you're
always,
right.
I've thought from the very beginning, when I got on this commission, that we needed a couple things. One was the website, which we did not have, and the other thing was a walking tour and an app. And I think the city should have a electric kiosk that has all this information on it, like a lot of other cities have.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but that's way beyond our purview,
It is.
so.
Well, maybe not. Maybe that's an idea for this ad hoc. I love that idea.
I love
The
that idea
app,
too. It's a great
It
idea.
seems
Yeah,
to
but
me,
that's-
Commission kiosk.
I mean, everybody and everybody's
Really should
cousin
be
has
the
apps
city,
now.
not just the Arts Commission. Yeah.
Me in a cardboard box.
Okay, so, and then we also,
My 2 cents anyway.
So are you asking for our approval
well,
of this
thumbs
going
up that we
forward?
should go forward in that direction, and there's no objection to that.
I think I think it merits an actual vote that we, as a commission,
Okay.
approve the idea of a brochure and
Docents, trained docents.
and a map and training of docents. And I think
Okay.
that we should go forward with that. I would like to make that motion, in fact.
Okay. And we-
That we approve
I'll
it.
second that.
Oh, I was going to second it, but yeah.
Okay. Any discussion of going forward and approving this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
The
But I-
ad hoc will be very pleased that.
Yeah.
we
I
could-
do have
Go
one thing
forward.
to add as far as the docent thing, because I know the museum has a hard time getting docents, so.
We actually have 2 docents on the ad hoc committee, Connie
Oh,
Campbell
cool.
and Jackie Clark, and they are advising us, and that's one of the things that is so valuable about this ad hoc, is Elise DePoit with all her historical background,
Right.
and Connie and Jackie with understanding how tours work, and then Sammy and Betty, who, you know, the writing expertise,
Right,
the camera, the photo. We need someone to take some pictures,
Yeah.
and that's the next part of this report. So,
Tammy, she looked at you as she said someone to take pictures.
no, I was looking at
No,
Betty.
you were looking at Betty, my
Looking
mistake.
at Betty.
It was Betty,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry.
So, as I mentioned before, we went on the Arts Commission website thinking that we would find the public art photos, and they weren't there. They were on the city website. And so we're, James, we need to know how we can access those photos. Now, in addition to that, wanting to access them, because there's ones that we don't have on there.
So you can work that out with him.
Well, I can work
instead
that
of-
out with James, but
No,
I wanted to
right.
be able to bring that up. That we're ready now because Elise has given us a thumb drive that has the original photographs that she used in the book Fountains and Sculptures of Ojai. And so we have all those, and Roger can enhance them to archival quality. So I have not had a chance to meet with Roger yet, but I'll be coming back here with that proposal for all of you to approve. We've already given the money, but I want you to see the layout of how much per photograph and how many photographs there are that he would do for us. So that's coming probably next month. I think that's it, other than we want to have some kind of a motion to approve like $500 for incidental expenses, like if we have to make copies of things at the business center or whatever. We're trying to do it here at City. I know James prefers that we do it here, or City prefers that we do it here at City. But it would be good to have just a 500 that you've all approved.
So
We
you
already have a receipt that is outstanding because we didn't approve that. And it's like 4 months old, that receipt.
Right. Motion to approve,
I so move.
a second.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's for
Opposed?
500.
500, all right.
But you are going to use the city when you can.
Say it again?
You are going to use a city copier and things when you can.
Use the city what?
Copier when you can.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we brought everything over here last time. But we did have these huge maps that we had to have made and laminated, and that was the,
Okay,
like $50 or whatever. Okay, then the next thing is the mural ordinance, and this is a second read of the mural ordinance that you all got a copy of. We did a little formatting. The Public Art Committee had a public meeting, and we went through all of the edits that you had given us and incorporated them, and found we had a lot of repetition and a lot of things to remove. We did all of that work, and you have a copy of that for a second read.
Yeah, I don't.
And we have asked James if he would offer us some language on grandfathering existing murals. And to that end, I've asked James to include in your packet these photographs. And I would like to tell you what they are. You all can find these pages. What's the first one in your packet? Right, the first one is, this is outside of Vine in the arcade. There's a mural there. But I'd like to come up with a way to grandfather these in. I think this is actually very delightful. This one down here on the bottom, below the wine drinking one, is on Jones and Company, which is across from
On Montgomery.
What's it across
It's on
from?
Montgomery.
Ojai House. Yeah.
Could
And
I
there's a whole
interrupt?
mural on the side of the wall there.
I want to interrupt for just a minute.
Sure.
You said something about you would like to grandfather these. Does that mean that you're going to write something into the ordinance?
James
do
is going to, when I'm done looking at the pictures, he's going to talk. I'm going to let him answer that. Because I've asked him to tell us how that would work. I have no clue. So I just
Okay.
wanted to show you what
All
we're
right.
talking about first.
All right.
So this one here that you see,
There's more than this, too. You
with
know
the,
that.
these are only, tell me where they are. I couldn't find any others. This one is on the outside of Treasures of Ojai, the one that looks kind of faded. That was done by Kelly Green, who would love to go in and pump it up because it's all faded, but they've told her you can't. The city won't allow you to do that. So we need to address this, I think. On the other side of that sheet, that's the gas station. That's Joe's Quick Stop. And that one also is greatly faded. So we have some options here. One would be
there's an
not to do anything at all and just to say hands off, let well enough alone. Another option would be to write some kind of language in this ordinance that would grandfather in things like this. I don't know. Did you want to ask your question before?
I was
Rachel?
just going to say, there's a huge mural, they're on all the doors at John Long's Imports. That mural,
The mural on John Long's
Yeah.
Imports, is that in the city line, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. You're absolutely right. You all know what she's talking about? Yeah.
So
When the
real-
doors are closed at night, there's a
One's
hole.
Oatley Kidder did.
Okay, so the real.
It caused a stir when that went up, too.
There's also some on the side of the walls around Oaks that Oatley did.
Oh, yeah.
Up around the oaks. You know, I did see those, but I didn't count them so much as murals because they're just little wispy vines here
But they're
and there.
still murals.
You still think it's a
yeah.
mural?
Murals.
Okay, all right.
So
So
the,
those
the,
two.
the question before us then is, do we want to grandfather these in And James, would you explain what that entails, please?
Well, actually, you just said exactly what I was going to say, which is the question before the commission is whether or not they would want to try to write in a grandfather clause that would allow these pre-existing ones. The major issue is it would be difficult to craft something that says only certain of the pre-existing ones are okay and others are problematic. So my suggestion is the Arts Commission is going to have to make a recommendation either to, allow the pre-existing or not. I also would just as a practical matter, I would think there'd be a lot more resistance and opposition if we tried to regulate these pre-existing murals. I think the odds are a lot greater that this ordinance would actually pass all the necessary steps if we allowed those existing murals to exist, essentially.
So the ordinance would only apply then to new murals as of the date of the adoption.
Correct.
Of the ordinance. Marcy?
Could we have kind of a grandfathering with a limited more limited requirement that, in the mural ordinance, we have the requirement that the murals remain in a good condition, not faded and all of that. Could we have a requirement, well, we're grandfathering you in, and you have permission for upkeep of these pre-existing
Yeah, I think that
murals?
should be required if we grandfather
So then,
them.
that one at the Treasures, they can go ahead and freshen it up.
Yeah.
And that's totally consistent with the new murals that will be approved that will have that requirement attached.
Should the freshening up come before us, or do we just rely on them to do what they've always done?
See, that's another question.
I know, but
They need
that's
a
why this thing
permit
is complicated.
Freshen
Well,
it up.
Well,
I think that if we put the language into it like that, if we say that we're
Then they need to take it down.
It's on
But-
private property, so they have to, this funding doesn't come from us.
I
It
don't
comes from them.
I don't see any reason why anybody with the pre-existing one would be told that they can't freshen it up. So I'd have to look into what the reasoning is for that.
No,
but
she's saying they
She's saying
should
that
be.
would we require it?
Right.
Though? So
Right. So I guess my feeling would be, so I don't think we're preventing anybody, any of these current ones from freshening up. I think the challenge again would be for these pre-existing. Now we're going in after the fact and giving them conditions that they didn't agree to. So that's a challenge. But I think moving forward, that would definitely be something that I think the commission should consider is any ordinance approved from this point forward needs to be
Yeah,
maintained
and
or
it's
In
in
the
there.
It's in there.
It's in there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But didn't you say, Christine, that they didn't think they could go in and
Kelly
owner of
Green,
Treasures?
Kelly Green was the artist for that one on
Yeah,
the side
yeah.
of Treasures of
Treasures,
Ojai.
Right.
And Kelly Green told me, and not that long ago, that she approached the owner of Treasures of Ojai and said, boy, that mural I did really looks bad. I'd like to freshen it up. And the owner said that she had contacted, and then later, the owner said she contacted city, and city said, you may not do that because there is no mural ordinance. That's what she was
I'd
told.
like to find out who
And Kelly
she
was
spoke to.
distressed because
Yeah,
she
I can
wanted to
look
go
into
in and
that.
fix
Yeah.
it. So was that misinformation?
It might
You know,
be.
whenever it goes through multiple people, it's hard to say where something got miscommunicated. But I'm not aware of anything, and that was part
Before
of-
your time.
well, and that's very possible. But that's one of the reasons that's driving this, right? Is that right now it's a little ambiguous
Right.
what the requirements are. But I can look into that and find out if anybody
Can I-
has
can I-
applied.
It sounds
find
as
out.
though that's exactly what should happen, is that instead of our trying to decide this issue tonight, that James should do the necessary investigation and put some thought to what sort of language he thinks would work to incorporate the existing murals or to in some way deal with them, because I don't think we can ignore them.
Yeah.
So would that be okay if we
Yeah.
Can,
That
can we
works, I
give them a
think.
direction,
postpone a
though?
decision until
Shouldn't
our
we give
next
them a
meeting on
direction?
this?
Sure.
Commissioner Harmon, I was just going to say what you said, which is I think the question I need clarity on is, are we okay making this ordinance applicable from this point forward? or do you want to really try to figure out a way to go backwards? So
It'd certainly be simpler if it's just from this point forward.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
Well, I think for me, when I look at the ones on Joe's Quick Stop that are so faded, is there any way that we can?
They're not really that faded.
I
They
mean,
were
is that
painted
just-
that
it's just-
way.
Say it again?
They were painted that
They
way.
painted that way?
Yes, they're not faded.
So if something, Treasures of Ojai was not painted that way, and we know the artist is willing to do that, but is there any way for something already existing having to fix it if it's become deteriorated?
I don't
Can I
see
say
how
something?
you
But I'm
could
trying to
possibly
ask-
impose something
think it's
on
suggestion,
owners. You just
suggestion.
can't. Would you use the microphone, please, and introduce yourself? Sorry, it's protocol.
I would, other than my legs asleep and I might fall over. I would suggest including in your new ordinance that you're allowing prior murals that were before the date of the ordinance, you're allowing them under the new ordinance to be cleaned up in the manner that's similar to the way they were before. And then you're allowing the cleanup of the old
Similar,
mural,
that's
but you're not
But you're not
requiring
demanding it. You're not
because if you
requiring
right, and I don't, James, was there a mural ordinance before? This
No.
is the first one,
No.
right?
No.
I didn't think there was. So you don't have, if you change the ordinances, you don't have to grandfather stuff in because then you're legal non-conforming. The law doesn't allow you to require something to change based on a new ordinance if it was legal at the time it was created.
Right.
So with this, since those murals are there, I don't know whether they're allowed or not allowed, and I can imagine some confusion about how it was painted on and can you redo it, but just make an ordinance, and I would assume that the council would probably be all in favor of that, saying, hey, there's an existing mural that we would consider a mural in some definition of mural, then that can be cleaned up in a manner that's similar to the way it was before, and then for new stuff, you have your new ordinance for that.
Yeah.
So let me see if I got this. So we would add a clause or a section, I think it would be a section because we have sections now, that would be murals existing prior to the adoption of this ordinance that would simply say that they have permission to clean them up, but not a requirement.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
and
it.
I think
Can
that
you
would
do
work.
that for us?
Now you may be able to go. I mean, that would be a question for Mr. Summers probably, whether you could require them to be cleaned up, but it's kind of weird because you don't have a prior ordinance. You're not,
Yeah.
you
Right.
can't really enforce something that's not even allowed in the first place. So what I would think that would work
Right.
though is that, hey, at least then there'd be the clarity. So if at Treasures they want to get it done, there's a clear ordinance on the books, you can clean it
They
up.
can, then they can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, my understanding is that this draft will go to you guys, to city council, and then you will decide if you're okay with it, that it's going to go to Matt Summers for a final, like, make sure it lines up. Am I correct?
Well, kind
Go to
of.
Matt
It will.
first,
Kind of.
wouldn't
It will go through Matt to get to the council, and then
Yeah.
the council will vote on whether or not that they're approving the ordinance in front of them or making amendments. But each version that comes before the council will be approved by the city attorney, so that it meets the needs.
It goes
that
to
are there.
Matt first?
Yeah, yeah.
well, so
Generally speaking, that would review. Well, we wouldn't vote. Generally, we wouldn't vote on an ordinance unless the city attorney has said this is a legal ordinance that we
Signed
can
off
always
on
vote
it,
on.
yeah.
That part anyway.
So just to clarify, so typically what happens is a term sheet goes to city council to see if city council agrees with the general terms, and then that term sheet, if they agree with it, then goes to the city attorney who drafts the ordinance to return to council for adoption. What's a little unique about this one is that the commission wanted to actually participate in writing the initial version of the ordinance. So the way we've been asked to approach it is to
I
then
thought that was a little. Yeah.
take
I
it to
understand.
council and then have the city attorney review it, assuming that council directs him to spend his time reviewing it.
Right, and one of the things that we've wanted, or I've, as chair of the Public Art Committee, that I've wanted, is that once the attorney looks at it, once Summers looks at it, that it comes back to us so that we can review. Now, we did that with the Public Art Ordinance. It went back and forth, because sometimes what the attorney had written was not showed that we weren't clear in the intention of what we wanted the public art ordinance to say. And so then we had to go back and forth. Would we still be doing that?
I plan to explain that as part of the process,
Okay.
and so unless somebody, the city council for some reason would tell me not to do that, I don't anticipate that.
Yeah, I think the right answer is I don't think that's a requirement, but I think it would probably be the procedure that everyone would choose
Right.
Okay.
to execute.
Good.
But that being said, I don't think it's mandatory for it to go back to the commission
Okay.
after it comes to the council, but by all means, especially if there's any concern with that draft, I would hope that the commissioners in the Arts Commission would have a chance to review that and make sure that their voice is heard at that meeting, so that we know as a council, hey, wait a minute, even though we might be approving something, there's something here that was tweaked by the attorney or for what, or even during discussion of the council members that maybe should go back to the commission for review.
Okay.
Okay,
Ryan,
good.
that's so helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. And then I would like to
And
kind
for the record, that was
Ryan.
Blatz, City Council member,
And liaison
New
for this
city
evening.
council.
Thank you.
liaison
New.
with the commission.
New city councilman. So I would like to
so-
suggest that we have section 6, that James will add language that is what
Section
Ryan
6.
just explained to us, and that this now go into the next place it goes.
It should not come back to us first to review what
I don't
James
think
writes?
it has to unless somebody is disagreeing with something in the second read.
You know, I'd like to request something, and you can reject it or choose to act otherwise. But there are a couple of other things that I would like to talk to. Perhaps the Public Art Committee would be the place to do it. I'd actually like to try to come to that committee with some suggestions, and some of them relate to the freedom of.
Can't we do that here?
We could do it here. One option.
Because when we did, all of us, Betty in particular and Sammy gave such great edits that
Yeah.
we never would have thought of just 3 of us. I would like you to go
And it's
through
gonna
that
come
with
back
all
here
of
anyway,
us.
so.
Well, and one thing, so I can just quickly name them off, but I was going to say I can do it in track changes, take it to the Public Art Committee, see which ones the Public Art Committee agrees with. We can bring it back and go
That
through
sounds-
those in track changes.
That makes
But
sense.
but it's essentially the freedom of speech, political speech, those types of issues. There are concerns about some of those things.
And can
So
I?
I'd like to talk to the committee.
And let me note that James and I did have a conversation about private commercial property, because there
That
was
was
a
another
question
thing.
from everybody about what about a resident who puts up some kind of mural on their house, and that was checked out, and we cannot, if they do that,
You
they
can't
do that.
prohibit it.
We have, it's got to be commercial.
And I found a typo, if you want it.
Someone's painting.
On item 41, page 2 of 6, under limits on mural applications, it says murals may not placed. I think it's supposed to be murals may not be
What
placed.
section are you on, Linda?
Limits in mural applications.
I have
Section
it.
what?
2 of 6, page 2 of 6.
Page 2 of 6.
I have it, so I can make
I
that
don't
as one
think
of the
you're looking at
changes.
the latest one. It's by
It's
section.
the one that was
Section
in
one.
my, it's the one in my packet.
All right, the
I don't have
wrong
that
one
one
was copied off for everybody.
Okay.
You did not get the right one. The one you should have gotten says section 1.
Okay, given that,
You're
I
looking at
think,
the old one.
I think it
way-
really is something then that James should work with the Public Art Committee and deal with these issues that he thinks have to be dealt with, and then we come back. At least we've solved one major question tonight, and that is the question of the pre-existing
So this is
murals.
not-
We all
This is
agreed
not
on
the
that, right? We
ordinance.
didn't
That's
vote on
old.
it, but I
No,
think
but
we all
we
agreed.
agreed on it.
And I'll commit to do that before the next meeting, so
Yeah.
we can bring it back.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
And James, I'll make sure that we're together on which is the correct doc. Okay.
Okay,
It's freezing.
thank you,
in it.
Christine, for all your work on this. It's huge, but that's
That's
the
okay, we're
nature
moving.
of what you do.
Moving along.
It's freezing in
It
here.
is cold.
It is. It's
It's
freezing.
the only time in my life I haven't been cold. I can't believe you're saying that.
You're having another hot flash. Really?
I might be. You're
way
over hot flashes.
You're flushed, though.
You are.
Really flushed.
You are flushed.
Thank you.
Ooh, I'm a hot girl.
Oh, your hands are freezing, but your face is warm.
Okay, let's move on. The Artist Mentor Program. Artist Mentor Program, and you all have in front of you the report from Sammy on where we are at this point. Sammy, you want to
Okay, so
throw
I'll
on the highlights, please?
Sure. So, so basically, what I gave you is just a summary of where we are so far. I'm not sure that it has to be for public record yet, because these are applicants, and we have 4 applicants. The publicity went out early March. There's been a lot of expressed interest, but we have 4 definite applications so far. Part of how I wanted to present this to interested mentors, possible mentors, was in the past. I think there's been a focus a lot of visual art, which is terrific, and we have lots and lots of budding young visual artists in our community. But I wanted also to reach out to artists from different disciplines. So so far we have a painter who's applied, an actor-director who's applied, a glass artist who's applied for the 3rd year, Stephen Edwards, who loves the program, can't get enough of this program. Yeah.
Great work
Yeah.
with the students.
Oh, yeah. He's so enthusiastic as well. And we have a metalsmith,
great.
Angela Sowers, who's a metalsmith, and people who are on the verge, just on the cusp of, they haven't quite put their application in yet, but who have pretty much will, I think. Dave Cipriani, who's a classical guitarist and composer with lots of experience and professionalism in Eastern types of stringed instruments, Indian slide guitar and things like that, which might appeal to some of our young people in the community. Meg Sycock Kelly, who is a production designer, a set designer, costumer. She makes puppets. She does everything. She works for Oh Yes, and she's a force. She's a force and used to working with young people, and she's pretty much on board, I think. Also, we have David France, who's an audio engineer, producer, guitarist, and he is interested in opening up his studio to help somebody, some budding young audio engineer gain some real world studio experience and get some hours in. And we also have Carl Hunter, who's a professional saxophone player, big bad voodoo daddy. Yeah. And he's already shown, just in his own time outside this mentorship program, he's already showed great willingness to participate in youth programs. He's done things for local schools. He's been a fundraiser for Rock Tree Sky School. He's already, somebody who puts his time into giving back to the community. So we have, and I'm also reaching out to, I haven't listed them here, but Peggy Williams, who's a fibre artist, and Nancy Horwick, also she's a visual artist, painter, oil painter. So just as for dates, so the closing date for artist applications is March 31st. After that, hopefully we have a good stretch, a good body of artists that we can then go to the students with and then say, who are we interested in? I know we only have funding for 5 mentor programs, and which is why I was arguing earlier if we have excess funds in any of our committees, that this be funneled into this program, which is growing and it has excitement around it, and very successful last year. And
Can I ask a quick question while I thought of it? Someone asked me last year, and I think it was Gail Hirsch, is there any reason we can't have 2 students paired with a mentor?
that was, Gail brought that up, and I think there was some discussion about that. I seem to remember some discussion about that, and we thought that to maintain the sort of intensity of the program, to keep that be a one-on-one. So rather than like have it be almost like a class or getting into a class situation, we keep that.
Yeah, it's really singular this way.
Singular, to make this program, count and be special and a one-on-one. No, I get it, but the way I would like to go about that is expand the program, get more artists, and
Go back to the budget.
Yeah, we
Go back to the budget.
Go back to the budget.
Yeah.
It occurs to me too that there's nothing to prohibit us from going to the various service clubs in this community and make the pitch and see if we can get funding. And I think if we can go as we're scheduled to go this summer and choose 5, and how we're going to choose them is the next thing I want to discuss. And I suspect we'll have, again, many more students applying than we can fund this year. Then we can make a pitch in this coming fall to the various service clubs, just as the Education Foundation is funding one of the 5. How about the Rotary? How about both of the Rotaries?
Lions
the
Club,
Ojai-
yeah.
Lions Club.
Yeah.
And
et
Ojai
cetera.
Women's Fund.
Ohio Women's Fund. That's terrific.
cetera,
I love that
yeah.
idea. That's a great idea.
I
So
would
that we're
suggest
not
we-
responsible
that
for
we do
funding
that.
everything, but we would administer it, but not.
That's what I was
Fund
going to
it,
say.
yeah.
If you're offering to administer such a great program, I would think a lot of these people would jump on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And Sammy, you've done a fabulous job in rounding up artists. You really have. I mean, last
That-
year we
this is
only
one
had
of the-
4 artists apply.
This is one of the programs that really excited me about joining the Art Commission. I've seen it in action. I've seen it with friends of mine and students in the community, and I think it's one of the beautiful things that this commission does. So
Now, the question that comes to mind is if we do end up with, let's say, 10 artists, does the committee then recommend 5 to the commission? Or does the commission review all of the possible artists and does the commission make the decision? I would suggest that the committee take on that responsibility. That would be my preference.
at the moment, I think I'm not. Gail chaired the committee,
Mhm.
but she's not here anymore. So it's me and.
It's you and me, kid.
Okay, right.
When we get another member to this commission, then
Okay.
we're going to be doing some shuffling and rearranging as well, probably.
Mhm.
But right now, it's just the 2 of us.
can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
I think it's a fitting thing for the committee to do because the committee can go in depth on these people and talk to them one-on-one and really get a personal feel for what you think they can do
Mhm.
and investigate how accomplished or not accomplished they are. And sitting here in one evening, I don't think we can do that. So that's
Sure.
my 2 cents.
No, I absolutely agree. I
That would
think
be
it
my
did
preference,
definitely needs more. Yeah, I mean, more follow through and stuff, and so this is just people who've applied with the form, with the basic form. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's been done in the past, but I mean, I'm definitely all for.
It has been the committee that's done it in the past.
Okay. All right.
I would like to formalize that, so if we could have a motion to that effect, I would appreciate it.
I just got one thing to add to
Yeah.
that. So I think before we absolutely decide on the artists, I think that we should leave the field open and see what the student interest is. So if we have,
So you can match.
so we can
Yeah,
match.
that
So
makes
if there's a lot of
So you
interest
let the
in
students know,
metalsmithing,
here are 10 artists, who would you like to work with?
yeah, and then
Why?
that sort of
Yeah.
does some of the work for us.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a terrific idea. That'll excite more student interest, too, if they see all the different artists that are available.
My only question would be, what do you do if the same one person wants to, or more than one student wants to work with the artist?
Well, but I mean, I don't know how we handled that in the past because we had 25 applicants and
I
5
think you had
artists.
didn't you have
I
the
think
artist decide?
one year we actually interviewed the students. If they had if 3 students had applied to work with one artist,
Mhm.
then we interviewed the students and the committee made a decision which one they'd select.
Okay. Yeah, that
Is that
sounds.
a workable pattern?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
I think.
Leave it open-ended and let you guys
We'll,
make sense out of it.
okay,
Sure. Yeah.
it's a deal.
Sounds good.
So I move that we leave it to the mentor committee to select the pairings for the,
That's the
pairings for
simplest
the
way to put it.
mentor.
Yeah,
Sure.
I second that.
Would you want to word that as a recommendation, or because you said the committee would select, but the committee would I thought I had understood that the committee would recommend that, and then the Arts Commission would vote
Give
to
the
approve.
final
Right.
approval, yeah.
That's what I
sure,
meant.
Sure,
I'm sorry.
sure.
And I think-
That's why we
I
need
think
you.
that, there was like a little, in the handout for the commission meeting where that happened, we had some information on each of the 5
Yeah,
artists,
yeah.
which was really fabulous to
Yeah.
see who it was that
Oh, yeah, we
you
will,
guys had
yeah,
recommended.
we will certainly do
and
that.
actually, I have if I have copies of some of the applications that have come in already, the 4 applications that are solid. I have them here for anybody who would like to. I could pass them around right now, and you can have a
I
look.
don't
And
think
it's
we
not
need to do that now.
Okay.
No, no, no.
All right.
When it comes,
sure,
yeah,
sure,
Rubber stamp.
when it comes back, it'll be a paragraph about each artist and we'll
Yeah.
go from there.
okay.
Okay, well, thank you. James?
So I heard a motion and a
Yes,
second.
and a second. So now we need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. We're in business. We continue. And we move on to, where am I on my agenda? It's the City Gallery Committee is next. We had a very nice reception tonight and a very nice gallery.
Thank you, Marcy. I love your ideas are great. Beautiful job.
Great.
Beautiful job.
I think Thursday night's work,
Yeah.
we had a really nice turnout, and I really I was kind of inspired. Said, why, Gail was here, let's let her give a little
That was
spiel.
great.
And talk about what went into.
Wasn't that nice?
And I think it's wonderful, and Linda recorded it, so we have that.
Thank you, Linda.
She recorded it, recorded a little about the night, and I'd like to do that from
Yeah,
here on out.
Sure.
And what else? Oh,
She sold one.
we sold a piece. Also, okay, so Gail's show will be up until March 31st, and then we have the OSA scholarship winners coming in. And then after that, we have
Did you say March
the mentor.
31st?
March,
31st? Because that's only.
May.
Okay, got it.
And then we have the mentors coming in. And then our last show of the year would be, and we're going to work on who that would be. We have some ideas. October 12th
Okay.
through January. Anyway, so yeah, and I'd like to have music too. We'd like to get some music in here during these receptions.
Yeah, I actually intended to bring a little boombox and forgot, but I plan to bring it between now and the next one and leave it here. It's funky because of we're going to be filming right after, so it's kind of
For the mentor show, I'm thinking, and Sammy came up with this idea that those students who got involved in a musical mentorship, maybe they can do some acoustic
Oh,
type
absolutely.
music
Yeah, absolutely.
during
Yeah,
the.
we've had performances.
We've had
of it.
performances, yeah.
It's part of their thing.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Present something.
But at least to
Yeah.
have some music too,
Yeah.
with recorded music or whatever, while people are drinking their wine and looking at the paintings, it makes it more festive. And then the
given-
artist interviews, the artist's little talks.
Christine, please. Given the liveliness of the reception, would it make sense on those 4 or 5 occasions a year that we have a reception before a council meeting, commission meeting, that we delay the time of the commission meeting till 7?
That makes
So
sense.
that the reception would be from 5:30 to 7
That
or
makes
from
sense.
6 to 7?
I have 2 ideas about that.
Yeah.
One is, from my experience, making a reception longer isn't a good idea.
Okay.
And the second thing is, you make it longer, people are going to stay longer, you're going to have the same trouble. I
That's
think
true.
it's
Right,
better to have
right.
a
Well
concentrated.
enough alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or can we
Okay.
play it by ear and just see how it's going? And if it's
Well,
we're
let's
15
let's
minutes
revisit it.
late,
Yeah,
you
let's.
know,
yeah.
for our.
Well, yeah, we can always delay the start of the meeting.
Right.
I think as long as people.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the Education Committee, Arts Ojai Education Committee, and this is to discuss possible book projects. And Betty?
The last time I had talked to Marcy about the book was she was interested in doing a photography project about Ojai Valley. And I was inspired by that, and to build on it, I thought it'd be interesting I wanted to propose Ojai and oral history, which would include photography of the valley, but transform it with all the storytelling by community members told to me, as hopefully the editor, to include the people and sort of the history of the Ojai Valley as told to us by the people that live here, sort of how they got here, even sort of like stories about things that happened in certain areas. So it's sort of like a deeper understanding of the valley, because people who come to Ojai always ask me what it's like to live here. And I think it'd be interesting to have this multi-layered narrative come from community members. So I brought a couple books actually that are samples of that I've been reading. One is published by an artist who lives in Joshua Tree, and it was published by Andrea Zattel. And she is this sort of scout. And so it took her a year, and it's published. It's month by month, and it's really interesting because it gives facets of the military that lived there, and then sort of people like the settlers who had lived there, and the military sort of involvement there, and how people historically first came to be there. So it includes facets of history, sort of like native cultures, the diets that people have there. So I thought it was a really interesting way to give a history of the Ojai Valley through, and also engage with our community, because I feel like they want a voice here as well. Do you have a question, Linda?
I didn't understand the first part of that. So you're saying it would be a photography book, but it would have stories.
It's more a storybook that sort of has photos in it.
Okay.
So I can read you an excerpt if it makes sense. May I?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So here's one from June. In the desert, live longer. Today I spent some time in a secret archive in the public library here in Joshua Tree. Penny, who works there, is the most helpful, and she showed me lots of old files about the history of Joshua Tree. I'm really intrigued by the homesteading that took place out here from the 1930s until the 1970s. The Small Tract Act was passed in 1938, and the homesteaders could build small structures on 5 acres and be deeded the land by the Bureau of Land Management. Penny was telling me about a certain Colonel E.B. Moore who heavily promoted the desert lifestyle, specifically the little piece of heaven that was the 5-acre tract of land. He set up an office in downtown Joshua Tree where the Mojave Land Trust is now located, also an entity interested in the definition and functioning of the land in the desert. By 1955, 43,000 5-acre tracts had been filed. It was desert fever. Joshua Tree was known as the 5-acre capital of the world. Thousands of small cabins, only had to be 12 by 6 feet, still dot this landscape. This myth and magic of desert living for some was just that. They could not handle the harshness of this land, and now many of the cabins lay abandoned with the telltale overhanging roofs angled upwards towards the sky. Stay tuned for more thoughts related to homesteading. And so she gives another account about sort of like, you know, a different president who like passes an act about wilderness and sort of what the wilderness means. So it includes different things like poetry and place, and it just gives an oral history of the desert and how the inhabitants came to be there. And I thought it would be an interesting way to sort of form a narrative about Ojai that's never been told before.
Well, there's 2 things that come to mind. One, the museum undertook a project like this a couple of years ago and interviewed a number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so the archives of the museum have those oral histories, if you will,
Oh, cool.
dealing with people's lifetime experiences or memories of their grandparents or whatever. So that information is there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that comes to mind, though, and I like the idea on the face of it, but there is this series of books on communities. There's one on Ojai, there's one on Ventura, and they have a history and quotes from various documents of the period and lots of photographs. And
I guess I wanted to include like some of the more less informal histories, like the Wall of Death, and just sort of like neighborhood lore as well.
I was going to say there's also a book that, and I can't remember the name of it. Doran? What was the lady that wrote it? It's a book about Ojai. It's about this thick. And it has all the stuff you're talking about in it.
Oh,
It's a really cool book, but it isn't visual at all.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a photo book with like pictures, a great, headshot of some weird character in a story, or an old ramshackle house with a poem and some of the history. If it was blended in that way, it would be something different. But she has done all the research. Patricia Dorn, isn't that her name? Yeah. And it's a beautiful book. Do you remember the name of it? I have a copy of it.
I don't have it.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, if this was something that you were interested in pursuing, would be the paper for years and years and years had a section called, I wrote them.
Yeah.
Neighbor. Meet
yeah.
your neighbor.
Yeah.
And some of them weren't great, but I got more response for writing those columns than almost anything I ever wrote for the paper. Because one of the first things I ever asked the person was, how'd you get to Ojai? And it just led you on this whole long, wonderful story about their life and how they ended up in Ojai. And sometimes it was really funny, sometimes it was just inspiring, but they were short. not very long. I think when you get into too wordy of a thing, you'd risk duplicating Patricia's book. But I think that kind of an idea is interesting. What happened to the idea about the ceramics, though? Is that gone?
Well,
I just want to comment on build a little bit on what you're saying. Is if we go this route and it's going to be historic photographs and stories,
new stories.
Could we
New
partner
photographs.
with the Historic Preservation Commission, because this is their area of, it's what they work.
I was
on.
proposing actually
Partner
something
with them?
contemporary and not historical.
Oh, you're thinking contemporary.
Non-historic?
Contemporary.
Contemporary.
Yeah. So I would work with photographers now and take photos of places and people now in our Ojai now. Yeah.
so what would be the criteria for choosing them?
I mean, I guess I've worked as an editor for a magazine for like 9 years, and for me, it's always been an organic process. So I did a short video after the fire, actually, about Ojai for a friend's music video, and people just kept telling me different things. So like an architect, John Davis, showed me this rock in Upper Ojai that commemorated where oil was first struck in California, and that was the basis of the story for the movie There Will Be Blood. And I didn't know that story. And so that type of thing, when I do a sort of call out as an editor, or, those things start to happen, like putting out a call out, and then these stories start to unravel and come in. So, yeah, as an editor, it'd be sort of what was more interesting and how could we photograph this and like talk about this person.
I really like that idea, and I think that also so Kim Maxwell's program, that we've recently funded, she has a great contemporary voice program, and to make that into a written form would be great. So there are very extant stories of perhaps not why people are in Ojai, but I've listened to quite a few of them, and some of them are. So that would be maybe a liaison resource for that.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there's a lot of resources for stories here, so I'm pretty excited if you wanted to move forward with it, but it definitely would be contemporary.
I guess I'm just kind of confused on the focus, though.
Yeah, when the idea
I like
came
the
up
idea.
of doing a photography book, I thought it would be a book that would be highlighting like David Baker and Roger Conrad and who is the one who's in his 98? We have Phil Harvey and Fred Rothenberg and people like that who that we would have a book on Ojai's photographers, because we have a lot of really good photographers here. So that was what I thought you were going for. This is like a really, I'm not sure I'm clear. But
I mean, I
it's
think that
different.
working with those photographers to weave in storytelling as imagery is what I was thinking. So it's like if you did a photography book, I feel like it's showing a place called Ojai, and I guess including stories now with those photographies make it a space.
So my question was, there would be multiple photographers
Yeah.
that you would utilize. So
Yeah.
all of the names that we mentioned
Of course.
would have an opportunity to.
We'd have to pay them to do that.
Or they could submit photos and we could see what happened where they took these photos, Yeah, or they could just be dividers for certain sections. I mean, it's all creative work to me, so.
I guess I must be frank and say that this doesn't ring appropriate for me, because when we initiated the book project, our first focus was on fine examples of architecture in Ojai, focusing on that particular art form. We discussed ceramics, and again,
There's a
we
big
would have been
history of that.
focusing on everything from Beto and company, and focusing on that particular art form here in Ojai. As an art commission, that seemed appropriate to move, and then we could do one book on
Different genres.
different genres, essentially. So photography came to mind, and we've discussed to this point photography and ceramics. And now this is really, I think, something very different from the impetus that led us to create the first book,
You know
and I
what,
thought
though?
was going to be driving
Well,
us forward as we went to create a series of books.
I agree with what you're saying, and I was just thinking, I like the concept of the weaving a story. I like that idea, and the photography. If we did the ceramic idea, with your approach, why couldn't we do that? Say the focus would be ceramicists in Ojai, but then approach it as a story of each of those people and how they contributed to Ojai and how they contributed to the field of art. I mean, that would be a different approach. I mean, the architecture book was awesome, and I think we need to follow it up with something special too. But
It's like a
this
series of
approach,
books,
this
right.
approach would be a fresh approach.
I see the written word as an art form,
Yeah, I do too.
and there's a lot of it happening in Ojai, and we're known for that. And I think if it's done the right way, with more kind of like snippets and maybe lines of poetry or things like that, so that maybe it's heavier with photographs, and then the written word is kind of more edited, and it's not so heavy on the wording.
See, I guess
Would
for me that blurs it. I'd rather say, okay, let's make the second book focus on poetry in Ojai, and make the next book a book of poetry, or ceramics, or photography, or sculpture. But
I mean, why can't we have a blur? I don't. I think it's more, I mean, for me, I guess, like as an artist, I feel like the genre is not important, but I guess the potency of the book is more important. So I think the element of surprise is also nice and something that's exciting.
yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I think there's a great artist, Jeremy Deller, who, you know, for the Turner Prize won a reconstruction of the miners' strike as a video. And people question, like, is this art? You know, and I think that the spoken word and the history and this sort of weaving could be a beautiful form that actually can support the community and engage them, you know. And I think when I thought about what could an exhibition look like to support this book, I thought it was great to challenge myself to think of that. You know, is it an iterative show where people draw in situ in an area that means something to them, you know, instead of let's frame a photo on the wall and, you know, do something more unexpected. So I guess, you know, not being limited to a genre was exciting to me, and I thought that doing a new book was worthy of that.
I think this could be really amazing. I do, and not so flat. You know, adding those dimensions.
Yeah.
But I do think we need a focus, like what Michael said. I think we need to pin it down to something. And I think ceramics, we could combine that really well with the ceramics.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, there's so many
We did-
stories
we didn't-
behind Beatrice Wood and the high
That
nose.
kind of that they already have books on
There are lots
Beatrice
of
Wood.
I mean, can the genre be the story and the photographs illustrate those?
Zillion books on her.
Well, what I hear is that, you know, there's the idea of celebrating the artists and the art that we have in Ojai, and exposing people more to that, like the ceramicist, and like we did with the architecture book, which was
Right.
beautiful and well received, and all that. And so taking what we know we have, and then again the other idea would be a de novo book, like you're talking about, like to generate more material from people than we have, you know, rather than extant artists and things like that. So what I hear is with a subject-based book is that we celebrate the artists that we have in those fields, and possibly introduce more too. And then, to me, this is sounds like I love the idea. I love it. It sounds like a de novo idea, though. It sounds like going and seeking out new different things from what we already have. Now, I'm in favour of both ideas, actually.
I mean, I think
that's the distinction that occurs to me that's being made, you know. So
yeah, and I think that, like, you know, those stories could be told to me by artists as well, you know. So I think that there's a layering there that, I don't know, I was trying to make it more dynamic. So, you know, the stories by artists, the photographs, and weaving those with poetry and everything could be inclusive. So that's what my vision was.
yeah, and I guess it depends how we want to focus it. You know, I mean, do we want to do a series of books on architecture, and then, you know, ceramics, and do we want to also include a sort of multidiscipline book like that too, which, I mean, I think there's room for that, but
Could
yeah.
could you maybe give us a sample book that you know that does this?
Sure. So
I mean, you know, I
brought
don't
a
mean
couple
tonight. I meant
things.
like for the next
sure.
meeting or whatever,
Yeah.
is to,
I've brought several
because
books.
I'm not real clear. I'm just not real clear. I
Not
don't know
either,
what else to
frankly.
say.
Really not.
I guess that for me, like, art is supposed to break boundaries. So, like,
Yeah.
breaking open the book to me. So I started a magazine called First Person about 9 years ago. And it was before the blog was invented. And I was interviewing artists, collectors, administrators, and curators before that was sort of commonplace. And the museum sort of had this tower effect over people. So, you know, collecting the stories, I wanted to hear firsthand what art making was about. And so the storytelling in the books that I brought, like I brought this John Lennon Yoko Ono book called Imagine, and they interviewed every single person that recorded that album. So it's an oral history of Ojai, you know, as told by poets, photographers, and the people that live here. and
But people
manifest
that live here or artists who live here, because we, you know, we're an art commission, so
Yeah,
for us
well,
to
I mean,
take something that's really
Yeah,
just
I mean,
about people's feelings about living in
sure.
Ojai,
I mean,
I don't think that makes any sense at all.
I mean, I'm an artist, so the circles that I, you know, that come to me are people who are artists. So the example that I gave was an architect who told me that story about that rock.
I think for me, where my confusion is that I see the book that we did, the architecture book, as establishing kind of like a baseline of a book that records the important pieces of architecture in Ojai, and that the next book would be a record of the important, let's say, just throwing out ceramicists in Ojai. There might be a book of the important photography, but that it's a record, it's an art record.
And a celebration.
And a celebration.
And this sounds more like writing a book.
I agree.
Help me say that.
I agree.
It almost sounds more like an independent project. It sounds more like an independent project than an art commission project.
I was just going to say.
We really should fund writing a book.
Right. I think it's a great idea.
I love the idea.
Fabulous idea. But I don't think when we're given that budget, it's
No.
to fund someone writing their book about Ojai. I think it's that we are making a case that we are archiving in a way.
And I think that's the case.
history of Ojai through all the different art forms. So the genres are important.
It's the case we made when we approached the city council too and got the funding for it. And it was the most expensive project that the Art Commission has ever received funding for. $17,000 is what it ended up costing. And I think our pitch to the council was indeed that we were doing what you've just described.
Say it
And so-
again for me.
Well, I think that the Arts Commission, as part of the vision meeting for the next 5 years, needs to figure out if you're just recording history here or actually engaging with,
No,
like,
I don't think we're just recording
you know,
history at all.
I
I think we're
mean-
celebrating a vital aspect of life in Ojai. And architecture happens to have been and continues to be a vital element. And I would hope that we would do the same thing. I mean, that's why we initiated the book in the first place. From the beginning, there was the idea of a series of books along this line.
Yeah.
And I think what you're suggesting is really something different. And I think it's wonderful. If you want to do it,
But
do
it's a
it.
separate project.
But it's separate, and it's not what the book series was about, or in my view is about, that the Arts Commission has endorsed and that the City Council has endorsed.
Well, I feel like I haven't seen the photographer's works that Marcy was mentioning, so that's what I was building on top of as the history of that. So it's not really totally out of the box, but I don't know. That's what I was proposing, was to layer these stories in with the photography.
Well, with the architecture book, with each building, there was background information about the architect, about when the building was built, just stories around that. Now, if we had, think about this, if we had photographs, what would be the accompanying language, text with the photographs? What would that be?
Well, I would think that you'd want to put something about what's being depicted, and you'd want to do a little bio of each artist, the photograph, and wouldn't you?
Who the artist
don't
was
think,
and what
Linda?
their training was and how
I'm just
they-
kind of getting lost here because when we talked about the book project, the last time we talked about it, we were talking about ceramics and that we had this strong history of ceramics and that might possibly be our next book was the original thought. Then we talked about it, yes, that we were going to do it. And the museum has a show on now where they've done a lot of the research already. And I thought that was what we were talking about the last meeting.
But they have
And
other
now we
books,
seem to be
ceramic
just talking
books.
about the photo thing. So that's why I'm getting confused.
I think the reason we moved away from ceramics, as I recall the discussion, was our discovery that there are books up the gazoo
There are a lot of
on
books.
Ito and
Yeah,
Chumash.
it's been
Chumash
done,
and
it's
et
been
cetera.
done, it's
So
been done.
I think one of the benefits of the architecture book was that there wasn't anything
Yeah,
about
but
architecture in Ojai.
Beto, yes, but there's a lot of other
That's
ceramicists
Yeah,
that
true.
live.
true.
I
That's
mean,
true.
look at
And when
the
you look at the
show.
show over at the library right now, it's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And if you talk about documenting a lot of what the art and art activity in Ojai, that's a big portion of it.
I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, I don't,
Richard
for
Flores.
me, if we did photographs, it would be great because we have great photographers here. To me, if we did ceramics, it would be great because we have great people working in that medium here. And then there are all the other ones too. And I kind of see it the way Michael does, where it's a series of books that highlight a particular genre of art rather than like a
Project, art
novel.
project.
Like, I don't want to say
I
novel.
like the
I don't know what
idea of the
word-
art project.
Yeah.
I like that too. It's just a whole different thing than what we were doing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's if that's what the
And I
Arts
don't know
Commission
that
is to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But I think we can make a case that having a record of the different art forms is business of the Arts Commission.
That's why I still don't understand why we have, I mean, it wasn't my idea to begin with, a ceramic thing, but I thought it was a good idea when you guys brought it
I
up.
don't remember that we ever decided photograph versus ceramics,
We
did we?
didn't. It was discussion within the committee that led
Yeah.
to this.
Oh,
and that's-
okay, it was at
and
committee
that's-
level.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so,
I mean, I'm happy to circle back to ceramics, but I would love to incorporate people doing ceramics today.
I think we
and
should.
having those in,
absolutely.
you know, and young people.
Absolutely.
I was just,
Yeah.
I thought we'd move to photography. So that's what I was
Absolutely.
proposing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because a lot of the work in the museum is people that are working
Yeah,
today.
contemporary.
Yeah.
May I suggest that we return this to the committee and that the committee thrash out a little more and that we come back at the next meeting?
And just to say, Otto Heino's Yellow Glaze is one of the most revered internationally,
Mm-hmm.
and there isn't a lot written about him in Vivica.
Well, I
So-
don't know that there's anything written about RTK tile either.
No. Yeah.
And, you
Oh,
know,
but
they're-
there is,
There
there
is?
is, but not in the format that we would do if we did a book, and
Right.
that's different.
Right.
Because it's an Arts Commission book. It's just different than what's
Okay.
already out there in my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right, back to the committee and we'll talk further.
They're actually pretty well-known,
Yeah.
RTK Tel.
Okay. I think next is public relations, and we've discussed that pretty thoroughly. Is there anything to
Or
add
did you
to
have
that?
We pretty much
Sammy?
apart from just to say that anything that is slow with this, like the public art page with the images and things, is down to my learning curve with this software. This is WordPress is open source, so you have to. There's PHP curtains and there's a lot that. It's not like
Got a
a
lot of work to do.
it's a lot of learning, and so and the way I'd like to do it is to get it right first time, so that when we do shift formats, this is going to be easy. It's not going to be a headache down the line, and that in the meantime, when we want to put like new public art, because we have new public art things, coming up in the inn and things, that it's going to be easy to slot that in to what we've got, and it's not going to be a. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's. Everything is go back to, Eden and start anew. So that's anything that's slow on the web page right now is down to me, and my ability to meet with James Hahn, and he's wonderful. And again, I want to recognise James Hahn for all his wonderful help and his patience and everything. And so the good news about public relations is that that our website is getting an awful lot more traffic. We're directing things. We have a link up with Facebook now, and our Facebook page likes are up 1,500%. We've got 200 plus more people in the last few months. Just they've followed the page, and that means that we are in their feed. Whenever we post something, we're in their feed. And so Lyndon and I have been working on, just increasing our visibility on Facebook and not necessarily local things. I mean, certainly local things, but also general, things that are interest of people who are interested in the arts, all sorts of arts. So we're doing all right that way. We're increasing our visibility, I think, in the community, and and also I want to shout out Christine Byrne, also been helping out with that and keeping me.
Okay, well, thank you for all the work.
Yes.
It's a huge mountain you're climbing, but thank you.
Oh, it's
Matterhorn, yeah.
it's kind of fun, and we'll get it right. We'll get it right. We will get it right.
Okay, arts acquisition, anything to report? Linda?
I reported last time that we met with the hospital committee, and that's our acquisitions and museum. Do I combine both of them?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. And they're still in the process of walking. They haven't really established what they need quite yet, but I went to a meeting at the hospital, and we presented what our collection entails, so that they had an idea of what we're working with. And Marcy and I are looking at making an acquisition from Karen Lewis. We tried to meet over there once last week? Mm-hmm. And it didn't work out, but we're going to try again. But she has some wonderful
Is she the
work.
only one you're looking at?
Right now, yeah.
Could we have
have a
an
list.
opportunity to suggest people to look at?
If you want to, sure.
Could we do that at a meeting?
Well, you
think
can just
about it?
email us.
Yeah.
Email us.
Yeah, just email you
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And then you would bring back from anyone so we could decide together who we're going to spend money on as a.
And I'll just give it my standard reminder that it less than a quorum can discuss this outside of the meeting. But if everybody wants to discuss it, that we'd have to do it at a meeting.
So we can nominate people that
Committee
we think would be
always
good for the
decides
next
what we
acquisition.
acquire, and then
So,
we
for
decide.
example, if
I
you
think this raises an important question, and it's sort of like the mentor committee.
Mhm.
Mentor committee interviews the artists, interviews the students, and then makes a selection. Similarly, here it seems to me, if the acquisition committee is the group that interviews the artists, visits their studios, then they're the ones who are in a position to make decisions. I think it would be appropriate for
recommendations.
recommendations to go to the committee. But
Right.
then I think the committee should make the decision and report back to the commission.
Well, wouldn't they make a recommendation? They don't make a decision.
No, well, of course, they make a recommendation, and we would
Big
have to
difference.
approve it. Of course, that's
Right.
true of everything that comes from a committee. It always has to be approved by the commission. But my point is that rather than the entire commission trying to decide on which artist out of 5, not having visited the studios and so on, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm hoping that we continue with the policy that we certainly were implementing last year and that worked successfully, of recommendations to the committee. By all means, tell them someone you'd like them to investigate
Okay,
or
thank
to
you.
consider, and then we go
Thank
from,
you.
forward
Appreciate
from
that.
there.
Yeah, and I would just hope that we would have information on who those people are and
Of course.
information on why you're recommending this one rather than that one.
Well, sure.
That you've looked into all of them
Yeah.
and visited. Yeah,
Sure,
that's fine, because I do have some ideas. So, yeah.
as always.
So who's on that committee?
Right now, it's Marcy and myself and Betty. Is Betty on it or Betty
I
not?
believe so, yeah.
Okay, so I could send to any of you. All right.
And as I said last time, our committees are, they're set, but they're in flux at the same time, because when we get a new commission member, which I hope will be at the next meeting, We have several applicants, and one more person contacted me the other day and said she wishes to apply. So I'm hoping that we can arrange for the mayor.
Can you say who they are?
Yeah, I suppose I can. So far, those who've applied are Andy Gilman and Ron Phillips. And the person who's interested and is going to apply is Kathleen Kaiser.
Oh,
And Kathleen is a writer and a
yeah,
publicist.
she's a great
and
publicist.
very actively engaged with the writing community here in Ojai and elsewhere. So I think we'll have 3 candidates to choose from, so that's
Great.
very encouraging.
And I have another question about that. Did something go out in the paper that there were vacancies?
Yes.
That did
Yeah.
go out?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gone on the paper, our website, and our Facebook page, but I actually was going to ask during the staff liaison report if that would be information that we'd want to put on the Arts Ojai page or the Arts Ojai Facebook page.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
You can put it in the
should
Okay.
we do that?
Yeah.
So I can provide that
Kind of
That's
information.
interchangeable
great
at this,
idea.
Sure.
at this
Are you
point,
going to
yeah.
send a file? And
I know these 3
I'll
people.
send it
This is
to
good.
to both of you.
And can I ask a question about the posting, though, James? When I read it, if I read it correctly, they said a 4-year term.
It is 4
Initi-
years.
Initially, it was 2 years, then they upped it to 3 years, and now it's 4 years?
No, they upped it to 4.
Yeah,
It was
but-
never 3.
My understanding is it's been 4 as long as I've been here, so I'm not sure when it changed, but it's been 4 years for.
Well, it wasn't when I joined.
Yeah.
so-
No, it
Yeah.
was, when you and I joined, it was 2. and
Yeah,
then
when I
went to
joined, it
4.
was 2, but it's now been turned into 4.
Yeah, so it is a 4-year.
Okay, we have
four-year
one
term.
last
Information on
question
the
to
website.
address, my friends.
3.
One last question, and that is the issue, and this is brought to our attention because I forget which group it was, but someone contacted James and asked if we would help publicize their event. And I guess the question is, do we wish to post information about other Ojai art events on our website?
What
Seems
event
we
was
are.
it? What event was it? We have an arts can I respond to that?
Yes, of course.
We have a website with the intent and purpose of listing art and cultural events in the valley. I am the one that has been doing it since it started.
Right.
So I guess that's your answer, James.
And it depends on what the event is, whether I'm going to, I mean, I don't list anything that, what is the event? It's easier to
I-
respond.
I can. I'm looking for it.
I mean, I want people to come
But I-
and look at the site and know that we're working for them to promote their event, but it depends on the event.
I think we're hitting on the answer. So the actual request that came in was asking if the commission would be interested in co-sponsoring events. But I think you guys are kind of going where I would go with this too. Is I think I'd stay away from co-sponsoring because
Absolutely.
of all that encapsulates. But I think you're right that the key is you provide information on these events on the website, and we're happy to share information about events through there. So I can respond to them and let them know that. I had asked at one point, what do you mean by co-sponsor? Are you looking for, money? Are you looking for volunteers? And they said the key thing they want is help publicizing the event.
Okay, so we can tell them that we can publicize on our website.
And we were supposed to have, is it on the calendar now where there's a place to, an email so that they can contact us with an event? There used to be
I think
one.
so.
I can't remember. I'd have to look into that.
Check
I'd have to look
see.
into that.
And
yeah.
then-
So as far as publicizing things, I mean, would these be things that would go on the front page, or would this go
No.
straight to calendar?
They're on the calendar.
On the calendar, because to every I mean, to do that would be an awful lot of work.
No.
No,
For
on
just-
the calendar.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is still a lot of work, which brings
This is
me
a
to
lot of
saying,
work. Yeah.
ask James if it's not on there, I would like it to be on there so that I know everything has to come through you. So do you have to set up a special mailbox for that and then have me be able to retrieve them from that mailbox?
For these, you're saying
For the
like for these
calendar.
types of requests,
But you
like
guys can work this out, right?
Yeah.
We
calendar
don't need to
requests. We can
discuss
talk
this
about
now.
it, but
Yeah.
those don't need to come through me necessarily.
Okay.
All right, my friends,
And-
this has been a long meeting, but a good one.
This is a record for you,
What,
this meeting.
the longest?
It's the longest
No,
ever.
I don't think so.
No,
The commissioner
Started a little
comments.
late.
I know.
Yes.
9:30 or
Commissioner
something.
comments. Oh, he's already
No, you're
left.
not there yet.
Yes, we are.
Okay, James, you're up.
So we actually don't have any, big changes on either the project subject to public art or the public art fund, but I provided the information on those, or the standard documents on those. I think the key updates have been mentioned, which is, the Sane Center continues to move forward. The Ojai Valley Inn had their grand opening at the farmhouse, and we still need to do our final inspection of that artwork, but nothing much on those. I did want to mention, because I brought this last meeting, but I realized that we canceled the meeting. But the Kim Maxwell, it was mentioned earlier that we had funded the Townies podcast, and they sent very nice handwritten notes to the commissioners, to each of you. I think I brought them to the last meeting, and I'm not sure if somebody else picked them up. So I'll have to track them down.
Okay.
But I wanted to at least let you know, and then I'll try to track them down in the meantime. Yeah. But other than that, unless there's a question, I don't have anything else.
Well,
I was about.
Can we go?
Hit the gavel.
okay,
good.
well, I have a comment. You have a question, but I have a comment.
You have a comment?
And this is officially unofficial, but I understand from someone in a high place that the inn is going to be remodeling all of the remaining bathroom sections, which would increase our public art fund by about, are you ready?
40,000?
$100,000. So it's really good we're doing the utility box project. Did we do a budget for that? Oh, we'll do it next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be coming.
All right.
Be coming back.
And
Thank you.
this will really be wonderful when the demonstration garden project comes to bloom, and when the sculpture park comes to bloom. We're going to have some
We
money.
need to talk about that in the committee, in the public art committee. I
Okay,
wanna
I'll put that
make
on the
sure we
public
talk
art.
about that.
Okay. About what should I have noted as?
Sculpture garden.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't have any comments.
ladies and gents,
I do. I
we
have
are
comments.
adjourned. Comments?
Oh, that was a comment on his report.
Oh, I thought you just made your comment.
No.
I think I heard the
All right,
gavel.
my commissioner comments
We're
are,
gonna start from the end of the table. Betty, do you have any commissioner comments to make at this point?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any, Sammy?
yes, I do.
Do.
I really want to remind everybody, if you can come tomorrow to the Gables from 12 to 3, I understand that Marta Nelson is in hospice, and she's hanging on for this, reception, but she has put her foot in the passageway to leave the body, and she's going to try to come. So I would really think it would be really wonderful if you can come to that.
Just
Tomorrow from 12 to 3 at the Gables. And hopefully she'll be there. I also just wanted to make a comment for those of you that were able to come and those of you that were not, that the unveiling of the welcoming table at the farmhouse and the reception that they had was phenomenal. And it's one of those pieces of public art that invites interaction from the public, and I think it's one of our most successful pieces of public art because it's a little out of the box and absolutely wonderful.
Marcy, do you have any comments? No. I don't. Then we are actually, finally, adjourned.
And my other comment is that was the best reception ever
It was good.
tonight.
It was good. It was
I knew there
very
was
good.
something else I wanted to say. No, it was absolutely fabulous. It reminded me of the old days. So, and I've got to put that down about James.
Had supper.